relates to the harmonic series. We're going to be moving deeper into the harmonic series stuff um, when we get into the mixing portion, and then start talking a little bit more about processing. So we're going to be thinking about stuff in the harmonic series with processing specifically, because EQ is like very dependent on that. Hey, what's up, y'all? What's up, Fettuccine? Yeah, so, there's a ton of shit that's going on, pretty much on every side of the audio end, from like ADD conversion, to how you're gonna like record shit. So like, you know, recording at a higher sample rate will net you more frequencies, more harmonics. So if you're trying to record really sibilant kind of sounds like a rap vocal, an R&B vocal, also a very like soft vocal, you might want to record at like 96K or something above that, so you can accurately boost that part, get a better resolution. So that's just, just one little tip, I guess, about working with that stuff. But that's kind of where we've been already, and what we've already talked about with like synthesis stuff as well as sampling. So now we're going to kind of move into like building a mindset for a workflow. So yeah, a ton of different perspectives on this, of course. But overall, there is one mindset with being like super successful, like in music, or just say like in any enterprise, as like a sole enterprise. And I say that as like you going out into the world, being somebody who sells their music, who makes a living off of that music, and who develops a name for themselves in some aspect. And for me, I've been through a bunch of different versions of that. And personally, like, I specialize in certain things, and you guys have kind of like seen those things, which are sound design and also, making music and kind of executing, different like genres and all that kind of shit. So that's something I'm really good at. But I'm also really good at sound design to picture. But then I'm also good at ambient music. And so, I have a bunch of different things that I like kind of specialize in, that when I sit down to do it, I have a good mindset about it. So when I'm sitting down to actually make music, there's nothing standing in the way of me, even just thinking about an idea. There's no kind of anxiety there. There's nothing in the way of that. And especially when I've like, been a ghost producer, that's definitely something that started to toxify my mindset. Where I would sit down in the DAW, and now making certain types of music that I used to love and enjoy, now I've been prophetizing on in different ways, unexpectedly, because I was super young when I was like really in it. And it just kind of like ruined my whole, I guess, first paid experience with it. But of course, that didn't like deter me from keep on, doing it and shit. Like immediately pivoted, and then went into like game sound and shit, and started doing sound design for commercials and all types of shit. So I literally just flipped my mindset. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, because the way I set up my mindset to achieve that was really quick, and so quick that I was snapped up before I was really aware about music business and all that shit. So, of course, that's why I'm talking about this, because this is stuff I would have wanted to hear early on, even before like a business class, like, say like your approach and your workflow and like your zen with it, like how you, approach setting up like a whole list of goals for yourself. Like what's really realistic and what's high as well. What's a realistic high goal that you can set for yourself, that's, something you can keep pushing into the future with. So yeah, so I mean, beyond that, because that's like the bigger picture kind of thing, and so I definitely want to set up a whole course here, like just on music business, and I'm gonna get some other people from the music business world to come in because I got a bunch of connections in that, and I'll just have them like volunteer to like kind of guest speaker on some of that shit, and then have some other people doing stuff, just so people can kind of get, I guess, a bird's eye view. Because a lot of people are very willing, I guess, from my perspective, because, like a lot of people worry about how like toxic it is, and like definitely hearing from a ton of people, you're gonna hear, you know, how easy it is to get jaded in this industry. And obviously, since, everything that's going on right now, obviously, there's been some bad vibes that have been proliferating because people profit off certain people. So the mindset there is that they don't want to ruin a good thing. And so they're going to do everything they can to guard it as long as they can. And then when everybody has to deal with it, it all tumbles down. That's the kind of thing that's just, it's built on literally a house of cards. You know, just one little piece, which is constant shows. Constant shows are kind of like the blinders for the bullshit in the industry because everybody's making money, everybody's constantly moving, nobody's thinking about what's happening right in front of them. But now that we all have time to think, everybody's thinking about what's happened and having to deal with that. So, obviously there's a huge problem in the mindset with a lot of people who had a seat in the industry already. So, I mean, that's just kind of like what happens. Stosie's question, if you ever find yourself struggling with a negative mindset when opening up your DAW, do you just try to push through it or take a little break and try again? Yeah, so that's a good question. So, like, if I find myself, like, being super, I don't know, just, like, sluggish and I'm just, like, not thinking of any good ideas and I'm just kind of, like, preoccupied or something, I definitely go and do something else. Something I love to do is go play some type of game, because that'll like take my mind off of something that's giving me like whatever, just occupying my mind with whatever. Play some video games for a bit, sit on the DAW, do whatever. Just kind of like a balance between two different flows. Where you're playing a video game, you're not really thinking about anything else. Unless it's like a really bad thing. You can't ignore it. In which case you should probably deal with that shit. But not play video games. But yeah, so I mean, so I have that, and then I also go to meditation. I'll go outside, take a walk, whatever, try to wake up early when I can, and like work out, all that shit, do yoga. Yoga is a really, really good thing for me. Um, you know, just because like I need to have good blood flow. That's just something I've noticed, like as a producer who's sitting down all the time, working on a computer, your mind actually starts to become lethargic when you're just sitting like sedentary. So you got to just kind of get up and shake off the cobwebs, drink water, all that kind of shit. So like if you find yourself being sluggish, you can't even think straight, you're probably hungry. Which is kind of a funny thing to say because you're just like, as a producer, you will definitely sit down for 6 hours straight, forget to eat all the meals for the day, end up eating one big dinner, and then not even able to eat half of it because you're just like, oh. And then you're just like in a vicious cycle. So, I mean, eating, drinking, and getting up and moving. Those are like the ways to get past any type of writer's block. The thing that people get caught up on is trying to bang your head at it. It's like because you want it to work for the first time you sit down. It's like it's all that shit, you know. So you gotta pretty much give yourself space, give yourself benefit of the doubt that all right, because it's not always gonna work. 0% of people have 100% success. 1,000% true. Because like think about the light bulb, 1,000 tries, failed glass blowing experiments in his mom's basement. Edison was killing the game. Also made some other shit that was pretty dope. But, definitely not first try. So, I mean, it's all about perseverance, what your big goal is, what you're going for, how you're going to kind of move towards that while throwing away the bullshit, which I guess for Edison would be failing 1,000 times over. And then finally he made light, which worth it 1,000%. So I even give that example somewhere in here. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that's just, it's a huge thing. So your outlook in life will definitely filter how you position yourself in life. So like that's something, that's another thing that's like people, you know, because like networking and positioning, are kind of the same thing, but people get them confused sometimes, where you're becoming friends with somebody because you're waiting for an opportunity. So that is positioning. That's getting a lead and knowing that you can, you know, get something out of somebody eventually, and then when you don't get it, then you leave them in the dust or whatever. You wait for the next thing, blah blah blah. So that's not how you're gonna get many organic type of gigs. If you do get gigs like that, it's gonna be because they work for a company, and they know you because they're like, you know, the music supervisor at whatever, and that's how they think about producers. So when they hear that you're a producer, it's like, oh, okay, give me your card. All right, you're in the pool. Cool. You want to have a drink? Cool. It's all good vibes, But when it's with an artist, it's a different thing, totally different thing, and I think everybody gets that. I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, but okay. So, stepping back from more philosophical kind of things, so how you are physically will definitely filter how you approach your work. So, like that's something everybody just has to keep in mind. No one's going to be like perfect health all the time, so it's always going to be kind of hard to, you know, keep that balance. But what it is a balance. Is you have to balance, um, you know, time for yourself to work and then time for yourself to play, pretty much. So you have equal amounts of both. So when you're thinking about like even exposing your ears to noise, I've talked about the threshold of pain. There's another threshold of just, I forget the actual name for it. I'll have to go and look that up. But, there's a certain amount of time you should be listening to actual sound at that level. So say if you are listening to sound at like 87 dB for 7 hours, you should be listening to like neg 50 to pretty much just sitting in silence for about 7 hours, which is like sleeping for a good 7 hours after working for 7 hours. So that balance right there, like that's something I've seen every like super successful like engineer I've worked with, like say at like all the different places I've been, that's just like their 9 to 5 type of mentality about working in the studio. And everything they do the minute they walk in is a decision that's getting done for their client. And because of that, this engineer can charge 500 to 1,000 per hour. So the more you get done, the more you can charge. The better you are, the more you get. So it's like that's kind of like a work ethic though. So I mean that kind of like leads into the next, I guess, page here, because talked about a little bit of all this stuff, because talking about workflow, approaching it from wherever you are. So pretty much what you should start, like if you're not already thinking this or whatever, not already releasing music, doing whatever, producing music in your room or on headphones, and you're still releasing music, that takes a little bit of confidence in your sound, because you're not in a professional environment. So if you're holding back because you're waiting for certain plugins, you're waiting for whatever, just relinquish that, because you got to kind of shift into this mindset of I can just make this happen with what I got. Because right now is what you need to worry about. Pretty much all the time. So, that's kind of like the thing like with a bigger executive producer, which used to be the term producer, like before the 90s, I guess 80s and 70s. People like Rick Rubin, those were producers. Quincy Jones, anybody making huge records happen, but they actually were an integral part to the record, which is like effects they influenced, types of processing, whatever, you know. Could be the layers in a chorus. They could have said, "Hey, you need another singer," and they added somebody who became famous later. It's like that's one of those things that just like each one of those decisions is made by a very experienced team of people. It's kind of like when you see a really successful artist blow up quick. It's not because they themselves are booking all these giant festivals. It's because now they have gotten to a point where they can get a team. And so they're on an agency, get management. Management hooks them up with an agency. Agency gets them bookings because bookings are part of the festival circuit. So this festival circuit, they, book out with certain agencies. They have teams of agencies that send them a ton of artists. So that's how that happens, you know. But you have to have a steady climb in order for management to consider you. That literally takes work ethic in order to make that happen. Because what you have to do is you have to expect nothing and then get everything. Because pretty much you're sitting down every month doing your best to advertise one track that you've spent a lot of time on and, sweat, blood kind of thing in order to keep that going until you can get recognized and noticed at that level. So you need like perseverance, and then you need to have like the ability to just execute, right? And actually send stuff out. Um, so, we're gonna actually check out a video from Pharrell. But yeah, pretty much this is him. This is Pharrell. This is also Jay-Z. It's like those dudes. Like Pharrell, he came up in not just by himself. He was like in a huge warehouse full of like, I think the Roots were there, and I think Kanye was there at one point towards the end. It was in some interview. So it's just like a ton of people around them came up because they were all on that mindset. Even talking about the Roots, like Questlove specifically, like in a bunch of interviews, he personally said that his, mindset with the Roots was not to be the most successful, but to be the most critically acclaimed. So, obviously, they've achieved that. And because of that acclaim, they are not successful. So you pretty much just have to hold a standard for yourself, keep executing that standard, and then keep rising above it. You have to set a standard for yourself you actually exceed. You know? So, work ethic, you pretty much like say, if you know my music and you saw me start to release, I had a steady release cycle. I was planning it for myself too. There's no validation I need from somebody else to say, hey, release this now. I said, I'm going to release a track every week. I made myself responsible for that and, held myself to it. And even if life was coming down on me, I just shot out a track anyways, because that's just kind of what happens. So, that's kind of like something of a stimulus that I was putting into it. Also, knowing that if I keep my steady like flow, then I will eventually break through. Organically, for me, like personally, this is more organic than the other time, which was I was in the right place, right time. They heard the right music at the right time. So it was more of a person in the studio heard some music, not rando on SoundCloud started reposting. So I didn't really have that, as my first attempt to it. So obviously I wanted to do it organically. That's for me because I, you know, really want to perform music. That's kind of like something I really love doing with my life. So I decided to refocus and repurpose my life towards that. from sound design and everything else I built again. Sometimes you just need to pivot. When you need to do something, you have to do. So, that's a huge part of like growing as an engineer, producer, whatever. Because if you think 5 years from now, always be thinking 5 years from now. Why? Because, well, yeah, 5 year plan. Where are you gonna be, bro? But also, you know, uh, are you gonna be doing this in 5 years? Say in 5 years you're not where you're at. Are you willing to go and pivot to a new career? Do you see your life without music? You know, that's something you have to decide on the way in. If you're really going to be serious about it, you're going to really like invest your life to it. You have to devote yourself to it. Where it's like you're willing to withstand some of the, abuse that happens with devoting yourself to anything, really. It's a sacrifice you have to make. It's that you have to pay your dues in order to gain enough strength and harden your shell, pretty much, from some of the bullshit that's out here. And then also humble yourself down, pretty much. Like, and that's like something I kind of make a point in here, is that being humble will get you where you need to go. So, say if like you use Skrillex as an example, because Skrillex was living out of his car, was living out of a warehouse at one point. Very, you know, in a tough spot, dude. Especially when he was coming up, especially when he got signed to Mousetrap. So like even when he got like his big push from Mousetrap, it was like, oh, I need to learn how to make this stuff. I do not have money for rent. I don't have money to get to Noisia. And so he helped him out, gave him that. So that's the handout. That was literally the helping hand to someone in need. But it was also strategic of, Deadmau5 to do that, but also it was definitely Sonny as a person, or Skrillex, whatever, as a person, you know, he's just vibrant. You want to help that guy out. So I'm pretty sure everybody would agree with that. Other people are a little bit wary of anybody who's just very, very, social butterfly, like, definitely can be, gravitate towards that and be like, hey, that's something I like, something I don't have. So that's the kind of shit, like, if you're a good vibe, then people will be willing to help you out. And I give that example here because, like, so say if, like, you know, you can do everything, blah, 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 and you can execute stuff, whatever. You're working at an actual, like, studio. Then somebody who likes you may overlook, like, a huge mistake, because somebody that's saying like, oh, well, this guy's already giving us a hard time, blah, blah, blah. Now he forgot to do this thing, blah, blah, blah. He's done. So it's just like, I mean, that's with any work environment. It's like you're not pulling your weight. They're going to use whatever excuse they can to get you out of there. So if you break protocol, whatever, it's like that. You already knew that was a fireable offense, and we're not going to look past it. So that's the kind of thing that will kind of get you by in a lot of ways in life. Like I remember that happened once, and I forgot like the right hard drive for a session, and then I was able to push it by an hour, and they were just like, "Ah, man, you're all good. You already did all this stuff for us, And then just like goes on a whole thing about like one time he did that. So it's just like everybody's been through some shit. We all get it. So we're willing to help out people who, just like we as in anybody, is willing to help out anybody who's being, respectful, not entitled. It's like when you come in with this entitled attitude, people aren't going to be willing to give you anything. You'll have to take things. So that's what ends up happening is those people don't realize how entitled they are. They're not acting humble, not out of even trying to be. It's just how they are. They don't know how to be humble. They're very self-centered. So they don't get things in life like other people. And so they feel entitled to take things. At the end of the day, they feel like, well, you know what? I did this, blah, blah, blah. So I deserve to just fuck them over on all the royalties. You know? So that's the kind of thing a lot of people have to deal with in the industry, specifically when you're producing with or for people, is like, well, I gave him blah, 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 so I'm going to do this now. And so this is the kind of like mentality where I cut you out in the back end and I didn't really tell you about it, but you know what? If you want to do something about it, come and sue me. And a lot of people do that. So that's not the thing you want to get into. That's you gotta be wary of those people, and you gotta be willing to take the hit if you accidentally make the mistake of trusting them. Because that's the learning experience right there. That's the paid experience. Is you get that first payment, they fuck you over later, you lose that, but then you learn for the next time. So it's like for me, that happened a ton of times, and then ended up getting 100% writers only agreements for my sync libraries. And so now I have a ton of shit still circulating on MTV today, you know, like on a bunch of different MTV shows that are just circulating reality and all just ambient music, just because I stood up for myself during a meeting. I was like, nope, this is how it's going to be. And there's like, well, you know what? We already sold the library, so you know what? You will need to give it to us, and we'll do whatever you want. Oops. Called our bluff. I guess we'll give you publishing too. So it's like you have to like push people. You have to be able to stand up for yourself, and then, you know, the humility pretty much shows through that, because you're like, you know what? No, because I'm not entitled to it. I deserve it because I worked for it. You know, and then you can actually discern when it's righteous to be angry about stuff, because you don't want to like fly off the handle for nothing. But then you also want to, you know, put your foot down when somebody's kind of stepping over the line, specifically with the contract. That's when you really want to throw humility out the door and then just put your foot down and say, nope, this is what I'm worth. I'm a human. You know, so you have to do that 1000%. You know, with artists in a Atlantic Records deal, for instance, in order to get any rights to your streaming, mechanical, whatever, you have to start your own label. And now you're doing a joint release with Atlantic and your label, say with Skrillex, Ausla, and Atlantic. So then Skrillex releases through Ausla and owns his music, but it's also a joint release through Atlantic's distribution, which is global. So they have that global platform to expand it on. It's like a step-up transformer, sends it to everybody, so everybody thinks that's the mainstream because of the outlet. And then, you know, he owns that. So it's like you have to pretty much put them in a corner with that. So it has to be undeniable. It's like people are demanding it right now, so the release has to come now, so he's going to start the label now. And so now if they want it now, they have to sign this partnership deal. So you have to like kind of put them in a little standoff. But yeah, you know, that's just kind of like, that's just, you know, business. You know, as gross as it is. Business, hard work. You can say business is hard work. So when you're making, say, 20K guarantee as an artist, you're expecting to make $20,000 now for one festival booking. So that's now your guarantee. It's like when you go and set up that kind of like, I guess, deal for yourself, you want to make sure that you have everything that you need, you know, and that you're actually able to call your own shots, and you know exactly where you're going with it. You have the right team behind you. You can trust everybody, and you know how to discern whether or not people are being deceiving, are using you, are climbing you, you know. And so, you know, if we just keep talking about Skrillex, because there's so many public examples of how this dude, you know, even beyond my involvement with those labels, knowing other shit, which I will not get into. You know, say like the instance with him trusting Zomboy in his studio, and then Zomboy goes home and makes that track and releases it. So he just degraded, devalued the IP of Skrillex for his next album, one of his homies, by accident. And so it's like that's the kind of thing that if you trust somebody, then you're able to let them, be around your most vulnerable spot, which is I'm about to release this album. Please don't go home and make it. Like that's not something you have to tell your homies. So, that's something that personally he can be fine with it publicly because Skrillex has a no bummers policy, which a lot of those types of people do, where it's like their public outpouring of, you know, interaction is mostly positive because they're only showing you the positive points. So it's like if Skrillex was pissed, then he wouldn't have shown it to the public and would have made peace with it before he made his statement. So it's like, it's all good, bro. I still made money, whatever. Who cares? It's just a dubstep track that will be irrelevant within a couple years, if not one. If not even faster, because now there's two of them. So you can just divide the longevity of that track in half by that. And that's the kind of stuff that happens when your IP gets stolen. The, actual, impact of it gets distributed from the other person who decides to steal it. But yeah, so again, being humble and then also standing your ground, having boundaries, having firm boundaries. People cross them, you say, hey, don't. And then if they say, but what it, blah, blah, just don't, dude. No explanation. You're my homie, you don't do it. And then it's like, all right, dude, no problem. It's not all this, but, you're crazy, man. I never said that. You don't deserve any money, man. It's like, all right, man. It's like, well, you have your thing. I'm going to go do my thing. And then I'm going to, keep getting work because I got all these credits now. But, have fun. Have fun signing the same deals without my sound, pretty much. So anyways, last little point here before we move into the last section of this like whole mindset thing is pretty much just creating a career ladder for yourself. And I didn't assign homework for this, but this is an actual practice that's done in colleges, from a marketing perspective, from every aspect of every industry. So if you were a coder and you're like, how do I become a large network, infrastructure dude for Microsoft? It's like, well, this guy is that. This is what he had to do in order to get there. So then that's the ladder. That's where they climbed in order to get just to Microsoft. They didn't start in Microsoft. They started with some little company, and they were just set up their infrastructure there, did that for a couple of years, blah, blah, blah. And then I moved here and then I got certified and blah, blah, blah. And then I moved here and then, eventually Microsoft opened up and I was perfectly qualified. So it's like, that's the career ladder for something like network security or whatever. But, for like Rick Rubin or Quincy Jones, their career ladder is like life experience. It's not the same thing. Where it's like they've been living their life just making it happen and being a vibe. Where it's like, oh, dude, yeah, this guy wasn't even gonna happen, but Rick found him, blah blah blah, inside of a bar, blah blah blah. And Rick Rubin actually has a really dope podcast, where he talks about a ton of his experiences with stuff. He's also getting super into quadraphonic and sound healing stuff, as people do when they get old. I feel like I'll retire into a singing bowl of some type. But yeah, that's kind of where he's at. Very zen, very cool approach. Like, just really cool to like hear his take on the industry because it's Rick Rubin. Then Quincy Jones also has this ton of stuff. Like Quincy Jones, obviously, huge producer, worked with Michael Jackson and all that shit for better or worse. But like Michael Jackson also co-produced. So he made most of that record happen. Without Quincy Jones, the sound doesn't happen. Without Michael, the structure, the choice of electronic drums, everything he decided to do was like, Quincy, make that happen. Quincy being like, no problem. So that's the kind of thing where you have You have a trust between an artist and an engineer. Now, part of their sound is cruxed on you. And this happens a lot with engineers and producers and stuff where they get a sound from a person, they just really feel comfortable with it. They don't have to think about it. They're just like, ah, yeah, we'll just vibe out in the studio. We'll get players to come through. It's like, oh yeah, you want a drum beat? Oh yeah, I know this guy. I'll call him up right now. It's like, yeah, man, if you get the part, we'll pay you like 10 grand right now, no problem. Then they play us twice. All right, man, you suck. So get the fuck out. Oh, I know this other friend. So I mean, it's just that's kind of how it is. But like that's from a executive producer standpoint. So who's Rick Rubin? Kinda nowadays, I wouldn't say he's Rick Rubin, but Diplo is definitely a executive producer. And from a Diplo perspective, you know, Diplo has produced a ton of different shit and ton of different genres, and also executed the genre for the way it was in the top 40 version of it. So kudos for that. And say like with someone like either even Tiesto, or Tiesto has brought up a ton of different artists. So like this one producer Zax, he was having him produce a bunch of tracks for him. This is public knowledge, so it's not something I'm exposing. But yeah, he was having him produce a bunch of stuff for him. So what he had him do was come on tour with him for like a year, and pretty much do back to backs with him, release tracks in collaboration with him, which were like supposed to be for Tiesto, but he ended up just bringing him up instead, which is like, that's a huge connection. So it's like if you were a shitty person in that situation, say from the Tiesto situation, I don't think Zax would have been down for that, nor would I even think Tiesto have put him in that situation, where it's like he's bringing him on tour and it's like gonna have him publicly producing for him and with him. So kudos to Tiesto for being a vibe for that. But Tiesto, if we're gonna talk shit about him, it's talk shit about him because he's a boomer, but also, dude's been in it since the early '90s, like for real, OG trance dude. So for his height, where he was and still kind of is, I guess, he deserves it. He's put in 20 years, you know, but we all have to endure that sound. So, there's different perspectives on all of it. Say if you were in trance, then that's your ladder. But from a different perspective, think about like Carmack, think about Team Supreme or whatever like that. Where a lot of people, they've kind of moved on to work with different labels, like say Mad Decent or other things like that, or Ausla, just different, not naming anybody specific, but just things that those artists have done. So, what they did though is they cultivated a vibe. They had a mindset of constant release, constant push, and they're pushing each other. That's the whole point of a collective, is you're influencing and inspiring each other in order to create a vibe. So that's the come up, for a upstart producer. It's like, how do you make it happen? You just do. You just make it happen right now. When I first heard a Carmack track, I was just like, yo, what the fuck is this shit? And this is like back 2013, 2014, when like he still had that Hawaiian mask up. And he didn't have any photo yet. We're just like, who is he? And I was with my homie Jordan No Pulse. And that's No Pulse is the one who kind of introduced me to Courteous and all them, and we kind of got in contact with all these people before they started up Courteous, and I was just like, wow, this is it. This is the vibe. This is gonna be cool. And obviously they stepped each other up constantly. Everybody has to come together for that to really make it work. So anyways, be a vibe, be humble, and then have a constant momentum. That's kind of like if you're gonna be taking notes, that's something that you should just write down in just big bold letters. Find momentum for yourself. Where's your stream? because there are currents out there. You just need to hop on it. It's not unattainable, for real. And half of the actual like professional work I've gotten has been through cold calling, which is a, email just be like, "Hey, I see that you're doing this, blah blah blah. Here's my demo reel, blah blah blah. I do this, blah blah blah." So have a little cover letter written up, and it's like, "Saw you did this. This is really cool. I think I could be like cool for this with you." And they're like, "Hey, we checked out your stuff. Super cool. You want to come in, hang out? No problem. Cool." So come in, hang out, get lunch, whatever, and then we just chill, and then we just like talk about whatever, and then there's like, "All right, so yeah, so anyways, so after the whole, we just hung out for an hour, they get to know me. Now it's so yeah, um, so let's get you on this right now, blah blah blah." But I've had it. I've actually, just because the way I am, I'm just really not a I'm not an entitled person. I don't like being super prideful and like arrogant and shit when I first meet people either. I don't have that hyper masculine kind of impulse. But I've seen that happen for some of my friends, and it's just been like, "But bro, duh." It's like, "Ah, yeah, I can definitely do that, blah, blah, blah." "Well, do you have anything?" "Well, no, not yet." Dude. So that's where, once you oversell yourself, then because it's not going to be like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. All right, well, we'll be in touch. Send that thing that you said you can do when you got it, actually." Because people are in the industry. They can smell bullshit. So you're not fooling anybody. You got to be very, very transparent. Um, when you're coming at shit, because that's again back to the entitlement thing, because you want to be able to sell yourself non-intrusively. You don't want to be like, you need me, blah blah blah. It's like, no, no, I need the work. "Yeah, what do you need done?" "No problem, get it done." "Yeah, what else do you need, chief?" Hey, a fucking solenoid, it's a shot, we're gonna fix that for you." "Yeah, no problem, I just got a part on the back. They give you for cost. No problem." "Yeah, yeah, yeah, no problem. I know. They're all like crooks out there. But yeah, I see you around. No problem." And then that guy's gonna come back later. It's like, "Oh yeah, Mike. He's dope. That's my mechanic." "Ah, yeah, yeah, no problem. I just got an extra tire. No problem. I'll give you $20. Fuck it. Good guy, Mike." But yeah, I mean, that's work ethic right there, where you're actually, because for me, my work ethic actually comes from working in and out, ironically, because I was a punk, and I was a greaser kid, and I was very whatever. And I remember my dad told me one day, he's like, "You can never work in and out." And so I was like, "Fuck you. Yeah, I can." Got a job. Had to cut my hair, but I got the job, and then I, put myself through like school and all that other shit. So I was able to support myself doing that. But when somebody gives me a job to do, I just do it because it makes time move faster. So I'm not somebody who just sits around and bullshits, because it's just a waste of time. It's like, I don't want to be in this fucking uniform, sitting around talking to people I barely know. Let's just get it all done. You need your trash empty, whatever. I need to change my hat. I'm gonna go do that. So I'm always just like looking for shit to do. But In and Out's core structure is around empowerment. So they want you just to be keeping yourself busy and telling yourself stuff to do, because then you level up. And then once you level up, then you get more money. So if you're always doing that and you're always leveling up, you can get 2 to 4 raises within 2 to 3 months and be making like, this is back like 2008, 2007, making 12 an hour, just thinking I was this shit. And yeah, I was able to like put myself through school and all that shit. So that's like where my work ethic comes from with that shit. So I just like, when I need to get shit done, I just get it done and I don't fucking ask questions. It's not really that hard. Um, so all that stuff comes together though. So you have life experience, you have actual hands-on work experience. Your DAW, all the stuff. The artists you're working with, blah blah blah. The studio as well. So there's a ton of stuff that you'll need to be prepared for. And that's why I give this example here, because big hindrance on workflow, meaning getting started and executing shit, is not being able to do half of the job, which is like if you're a beat producer and you didn't know how to work on a mixing console, then once you go and get that kind of gig, or not even gig, you're being asked to like produce for somebody, which is, I guess, a gig. Exactly this example. And I've seen this happen at Fantasy a couple times with different like producer rapper combos. It's like this dude just kicked his producer out of the studio because he like couldn't like get a session running. He was like, "Yo, fuck this, man. Yo," and he just like left the studio. And the dude's like, "All right, I guess it's over then." It's like, "Whoa, awkward, bro." It's like, yeah, because he didn't know what he was doing, and he made it super awkward for this dude because this guy who's hired him as a producer is paying $2,000 for the day, and he just wasted 4 hours. You kidding? Are you? Who likes to waste $2,000 around here? I don't think anybody. So, even if you are rich, that's super annoying. So yeah, so if you go in there and they're like expecting you to run shit and you can't, it's over. So you gotta like kind of prep yourself with some of that shit, or be transparent. If you're not transparent, then that exact situation happens where this guy was like sweating. He's like, "Oh no." I saw another instance where this guy was fired because his guitar strings were too loud. Nothing on him, you know. He was just like, "Oh, I shouldn't have put on new strings. My bad." So that's the crazy fucking band director running shit. He's running shit into the ground. He's running shit too hard. Fired 2 players that day. And then rapper fired 1 producer that day because he couldn't run shit. So it's like you got to be able to compensate for these different situations, like especially as a producer. Like if you're gonna go sit down with like a bigger producer who's invited you over, it's definitely pretty anxiety inducing. You're like, "Oh man, I want to perform, blah blah blah." So like if you say aren't even at like a high level, which is kind of weird, then you would kind of like work with them from what you're good at. Say if you're not a high level producer, but you're working with a high level artist, it's probably because you're doing something else with them, like singing, playing, whatever. I don't know. So then you're able to run shit and execute what you do, which is, oh yeah, I'm a good singer, but I'm a really good singer because I do things in like 1 to 2 takes, and I do exactly what you asked for, and then I also know how to cheat up and on the mic and dynamically pull my head. That's a huge thing for singers is when they belt it, they need to pull their head back because proximity effect. So if you ever sing a singer like Whitney Houston, Diana Ross, who are like amazing recording artists, when they're belting it out, their mic is like at chest level, even on stage, because they're compressing themselves naturally. And they know how to compress their own vocal by just moving the mic farther away. So that's a huge part of recording vocals. If you're an engineer, knowing that, you want to tell your singer to do that. And then if the singer's like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." If they just cannot take the direction, then it's just like, "Ah, we're just trying to do one line," and you just keep on clipping. Just pull back right when you do the thing. And it's just like if that happens for an hour, it's just like, all right, so we're just gonna move on, because it's like that's workflow. So you got to be able to execute. And we're talking about live engineering shit here. So say if you were working alone, blah, blah, blah. Your workflow, for starting a beat, making a sound, you should keep a standard for yourself, not where it's like, "Oh, dude, I'll make something dope in 5 minutes and fuck me." It's like, no, like if you don't have an idea of where you're going with it with like within 30 minutes to an hour, decide what you're doing. Like if I lose my perspective on a track, say specifically like that, where I start to make a sound and go way off, I'll just start sound designing and recording that shit. So now I have a new workflow. Now this thing turned into something else. Now it's a sound design session, And then I can go and take a break and flip my mindset back and then get back on task where I'm actually executing things again. Now I can have a fresh perspective and be a little bit more objective about it. A little bit more, not super objective. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, this whole thing doesn't work. I'm just going to wipe the whole bass line and repurpose this way. And then the line works. But it took me stepping away from it, me trying a couple other things out, and then maybe even having a sound design session in between. For some of my mentors, like this one dude who taught me a bunch of stuff in like Logic and shit, Triphonic, he pretty much does his entire workflow like that, where he'll do drums in one session. He'll be like, oh, it's a guitar session. So he'll import the drums into that and then start a new session just to record guitars and then sequence process, record that. All right, now we're doing bass lines. It's like, now it's all that. And he'll go and rent a hardware synth just to record bass lines for one track for. So it's like he has his workflow. It's like, I want this, I'll have placeholders for the entire thing that are basic, and then I'll go and repurpose everything one by one until I'm really satisfied with it. So that's another type of workflow. If you're an artist, like a sketch artist, drawing pictures, in order to lay the foundation for a face, there is one set, you know, graph outline that you go and set the dimensions of that face to. So that's kind of what you do with making music. Like you set that sketch, you set the floor for yourself to go move into it later with. Like, so if you want to have like a vocalist in there, you put some kind of placeholder in there to like do a vocal line. So it allows you to kind of like produce around that and then fit it in later. But yeah, so there's, you know, ton of perspectives on that. But really, it's about knowing what stunts your workflow. What's stopping you? What's stopping you from working right now? So you gotta figure that out and then pivot from there. So you're losing, you know, focus on the track because of one sound. You know, maybe take out the sound. Maybe try a new sound there. Maybe, you know, have no sound there. Any of them. I always try all of them. Sometimes I just try dropping something random there. Like maybe no bass line there, maybe just vocal. So now I start auditioning different things that I can think for just one little spot. You know, because if one little spot for me kind of sets off the progression or phrasing of one drop, then it throws off my vibe. And I need my vibe to be even with it. So I want it to constantly be giving me pleasing things while it's happening. So I'll stop with each little piece as it happens along the way until I have a cohesive 8 bars, then move on to the next. And then I can see the bigger picture, and then I can go one by one again and refine and refine and refine. So it's, you know, I'm taking away layers of filth. You know, I'm erasing all of the smudges, pretty much. Erasing the smudges would be editing, would be having different sections for your workflow. No, yeah, so you always should be thinking like, yo, this song could do something. I always believe my tracks. Sometimes I won't believe in a track and I'll be like, you know what, this is just terrible. And then I'll make it super terrible. So I'll just go in on the meme. It's like, make some rhythm track, I'll put the most obnoxious acapella on there. I'm just like, ugh, I hate this bass line or whatever because it's just so blah, 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 you know. It's so mainstream, dude. It would blow me up too quick. And I just go and drop something that I would never release because of that vocal. But, you know, I might keep it as a dub. I might keep it as something else. I might repurpose the actual stems of the bass line into something else. I might, you know, so there's so many different things that everything can be repurposed for. So you're not like, you know, losing anything from failing. You gain experience, you gain practice, and it speeds up your workflow along the way. So, you know, that's something that you need to like really kind of just nail down. You know, what is your flow? How do you start your track? What is your thing that you need to do first in order for you to see the big picture? You know? So, like, for people that are doing giant sculptures or whatever, they stand from a distance and then they kind of like, look in perspective and with their mind's eye. They're like thinking, okay, I start here because of this, blah, 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 and then they start chipping away from there. So that's kind of the same perspective here, where you have to do it in layers. You know, in order to make it happen fast, you literally have to do it like that. You have to be like, all right, now it's time for the bases. Now it's time for this. Now it's time for that. Now it's time for the builds. Now it's time for this. Oh, I still got to do this, 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 and this. And then you're like, oh, it's going to take 30 minutes for that, at least this for that, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man, I can't have this track to you until blah, 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 4 hours. Give me 4 hours. And then you just go and check all that shit off the list. And then you go and send it. How do you feel? Like, oh yeah, it's just sick. Can you like just mix it? Oh yeah, no problem. Oh yeah, you can send that in the morning. No problem, dude. Yeah, sick. Oh, cool, bro. So then you can do the mix that night, check it in the morning, and then send it. So you're able to still execute it. You don't want to set a deadline for yourself and not be able to achieve it. You always want to set a deadline that's past what you think you're going to be doing. So you're always meeting your deadline and you're ahead of schedule. So, but it also requires you to be kind of fast a little bit. So if you want to set a deadline for 4 hours, you got to be able to do it in 3. So you want to give yourself that 1 hour wiggle room, because sometimes for me with the professional thing, like specifically for these when I did this Nike, the most recent Nike like bundle of commercials I did, and they were having re-edits and recuts halfway through me working on stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, well, cool. So that's going to take all this extra time, right? Because I got to now move every single sync 3 seconds. You know that, right? And so that's exactly what you got to like kind of compensate for. Yeah, but also there's a saying in LA or in Hollywood that, if you're late, you're fired. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're early, you're on time. So the same thing needs to be equated into that. And then also you need to scale your, actual self-worth for that. So there's I'm about to go through a couple different, I guess, life sayings and just personal work ethic sayings. So and this is something I'm going to talk about with the business stuff. So, it's a thing. But if you're being asked to do something, say even mixing, as the general producer now, we're not talking about you being sound designer, me. So you can choose 2 of 3 things: good, fast, and cheap. So you can either have it good and fast, but it's not going to be cheap, or fast and cheap, but it's not going to be good. So you have to give people either of those options. And then when they give you their deadline, you have to be very clear that this is the estimate, this is what you're going to get for that much. I don't have enough time to do blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So it's like you have a whole checklist of things you're going to have to do. It's like, as a producer, you're being asked to mix a track. Like, oh, dude, well, I'm going to have to do all this stuff to blah, blah, blah. I feel like you need to go into the mix and do this, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, if you want me to do it in this amount of time for this much, I need you to do all this shit for me. It needs to be ready. So you just need to be able to communicate with people and be transparent. And you'll get work, because being, open and transparent is humble. Because you're not worried about looking dumb. You're not worried about looking like you can't do something, whatever, Everybody wants to be able to hold the entire world on their back. Nobody wants to say that that's just physically impossible. It's like, well, I'll do my best. Now we'll see. I can do that. No problem. Yikes. How is a pledge for a frac similar to that? But, I guess I can kind of see that. Because they're all about, forming work ethic with community and a brotherhood. But yeah, so, here's a perfect example right here of, I bartended a bit, and they gave me the job because I had 0 experience, and I was transparent coming in. And I got the job over a professional who went to bartending school, all this shit, pro bartender, a friend of the other bartender. who was being considered for the job, and they gave it to me because he was very, this is how I do things, right when you walked in the door. And they were just like, hey, bro, so we need you to actually pour like this because, you know, this is how much the shot is. We don't care that you can count it out, measure it out. And he just didn't want to measure, so, you know, lose a job because of that. And it's just being a bartender, I guess. And when I was bartending, I was actually going to school full time, working at Pyramid, teaching, and doing other shit. And I even started working at Fancy Studio as well as bartending. So, like, I was doing a ton of shit. I was drained. I was putting in my dues, pretty much. This was when I was like 22, 23, around there. Maybe 23, 24. But yeah, same thing here. But with Fantasy Studios, they knew everything I was capable of, you know, because they asked, like, oh, do you have any experience? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. And as I showed them my reel, showed them some of my ghost working and some of my connections in the metal industry and all that shit. And they're just like, wow, so are you going to be happy here? I'm just like, yeah, I want to work here because it's Fantasy Studios. This is where Miles Davis recorded. And so they're just like, oh, okay, well, you know, you like the history of this place, huh? Cool. So it's like the dude who owned it, we just ended up talking for 2 hours about music. And so it's like, I got the job because of that. But they were also wary the minute I walked in because I knew so much. And they've dealt with people who exactly this, their way, not their way. It shouldn't be your way, it should be their way, pretty much. So, you know, if I work for you, I work for you. That means I don't do anything that you don't tell me to do. So, big reason here, they had a few U47 microphones, 60 years old. Fun fact, these microphones are made from aircraft grade metal. And due to that, they will last for another 100 years. Amazing. A lot of shit from that era will last that long too. But yeah, so these originals are worth well over 20K, probably close to 50. And they had a very professional mic tech there working on them constantly and making upgrades and all this shit. Hey, what's up, Wolk? Appreciate the raid. But yeah, so they had these microphones there, and pretty much every single vocalist wanted to use the U47. You had people even flying in from across this country to use the U47s. And specifically for jazz, it was just constantly a thing, so it was like, it was awesome. I loved it. Because U47 through a distressor, it's fucking amazing. But, you know, this was the protocol. If I set it up, I need to have a cart with a pillow beneath it. And if they saw somebody without a pillow on a cart, you were fired on the spot. Because it's been dropped. The engineer was like, it's been dropped 3 times. Each time, I have to put it all the way back together. And this dude like sat me down day one. It's like, oh, so you're a new hot shot, huh? Okay. It's just like such a ratchet old man. And he's like, all right, so day one, this is what I always do to the newbies. Make me a pot of coffee. Make it strong. And that was his test. And I made some really strong coffee. Mainly because I was making some really strong coffee at the restaurant, or the bar actually. So he was just like, yeah, I can make some strong coffee. It's like, oh my God, my heart. But yeah. Anyway, so I mean, that's fun little experience. I got to do a lot of shit there. I got to record the Counting Crows, Journey, fucking got to record and master shit to vinyl. Got to learn how to do that with this random dude who sits in this weird little cubby. It was like being John Malkovich, except if when you went in there, there was a dude using Pro Tools recording shit to vinyl. And he came out one night. I didn't even know he worked there. He was like, hey, I heard about you. Yeah, come back here. You want to see how vinyl's cut? I was like, all right, yeah, 1000%. And he was like, hey, you want to cut this next record for me? I was like, oh my God, yeah, no problem, dude. I got it. Yeah, that was fun shit. I just have to stay super late because Counting Crows loved to just leave whenever they wanted. So I just had to sit there and just be like, oh, counting crows, man. The dude with the dreads, he was super nice. He loved bison burgers. Dude was addicted to bison burgers every night. Jesus. Some people, they have their meal though. That's actually a huge part of workflow. Ironically, when you're in a studio, literally everybody has to have food. They need coffee, they need water. If you don't have food for your artists, the fucked it's that session's done. Why? Because everybody's hangry. When you have an entire hangry room full of artists, nothing gets done. Nobody's parts get recorded correctly. Engineers pissed off. Everybody leaves. You know. So it's like, intern, go get this. Oh, intern's not here. All right. Well, I'll go get that. Blah blah blah. No problem. Or this. Blah blah blah. And there's other restaurants that would be able to compensate for that too. And we're like, all right, yeah, they're gonna like walk it in. Blah blah. So it'll be here this long. Or some artists need specifically certain types of sandwiches. And you get them all the way across, the fucking city. And so we would just schedule it, be like, okay, this dude from Suicidal Tendencies coming in here, so he loves Ike's, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so approximately 40 minutes here, we're going to send you to, get the sandwich. You need to be on the road getting that sandwich by here, and it needs to be here by then, or else, like, the shit doesn't get done, so the sandwich needs to be here. It's like, it's such a crucial thing. But I mean, when you're working with homies, it's just like, all right, bro, let's order pizza. Fuck yeah. And then once the pizza's there, shit gets done again. Too spliffed out, man. You're so spliffed out, you're gonna need some food, for real. And you can't just drink Coronas. You gotta drink some water too. That's hilarious. Hey, oh man, a lot of people in the chat. Big. But yeah, so there's so many different like ways to break into this industry that it's funny that people feel like they're locked out from not being in LA, and that's why I actually give this example here because this is a perfect example of how to make it in the industry, networking, but then never networking. It's a catch 22. You got to network, but then you got to never network. Because it's kind of like dating. You never want to say, hey, I'm like super into you. It's like all of a sudden it's like, hey, so like I'll be pissed if you cheat on me now. So let's make this whatever. It's not like that, but it's you don't want to come on too strong, right? Especially if you're gonna meet an artist after their set or whatever. You're not gonna want to be like, hey man, so check my SoundCloud out right now. I know you just got done playing, but it's my turn. So look at me and give me the attention. This is my moment. So that's what you're saying to the person, like with your body language and with your entitlement. This is my moment. Please put aside your moment to get some space because your space is my opportunity. That's not something you want to do. Do not corner somebody. Do never corner somebody in a green room and then just tell them about whatever. Like for real. As anti-negative, like I have all my friends in Courteous and all this shit and low end theory and all that stuff because I lived in LA for a long time. I didn't tell anybody that I was releasing as anti-negative for a very long time. It was about 6-7 months before they found out and they're like, what? Hey, you kidding me? How dare you? I remember Zimbu Blair, he freaked out. He was screaming. It's hilarious. Low end was good times. But, it's the kind of thing that, like, I don't want to make it about that. We're all hanging out. We're all listening to the same music. We're all vibing. I'll make music with everybody, but I don't feel the need to, like, preach my shit. It's just not something I'm, like, trying to hang out and do. With homies, you can vent, you can do blah, blah. But that's, it's not networking. It's not like, hey, bro, so tell me everything you're up to. And then it ends up becoming, oh, so this guy really just wants this because every time, he hits me up. He's just like, "Who you with?" I was like, That's something in LA that happens a lot. Once people start wondering who you're with, they start wondering if it's worth their time. So who you're with is irrelevant. You want to hang out with me, and that's all I care about. So this is what I care about: gaining lifelong friends. Because if you gain lifelong friends, then you have community. Then you feel like you belong somewhere. And it happens for you not because you belong to that specific community, but because you feel confident in yourself. You have validation, you have a network of friends, they all support you, and you all support each other. What that does is it creates a network of work ethic. Now SoundCloud is working again. Now people are putting out shit again because everybody wants to just get traction. Everybody is watching this person's example and saying, hey, I like that. That really worked for them. I bet I can do the same and it will have the same result because my stuff is just as good, but different. And that's pretty much what happens with all these different places. Say even like with Lost Dogs. You know, Lost Dogs, it's like, I remember hearing them, like a bunch of them, you know, like a year before they super blew up and being like, yeah, these guys are definitely going to blow up just because they're all not having the same sound, but they're all like doing something the same but different, you know, where it's like they're all in one genre and they're developing like a sound of Lost Dogs, whereas Courteous developed the sound of Curious, whereas Team Supreme. Then you have, you know, like Upscale, Enigmatic. So it's like all these different brands and labels, they all cultivate a vibe, but really the vibe starts with homies. It starts with everybody coming together to make shit happen. I came up with the glitch hop community, really, like back like 2012, 2011, around there. So, you know, that was all it was. It was just vibe. And we would kind of throw all these parties in Oregon, whatever, just hang out. It was fun. Good vibes. And they're all doing big things as well, you know? Same kind of thing. Glitch Hop is all like live music now, for the most part. Other people have gone towards Nero or halftime. So it's like everybody has their vibe. They're still around the same people, getting shit done. Same burner crews, same burner car. Still making it happen. They're all just kind of growing with the time. Now they're doing live music just because Glitch Hop is super funky. Definitely calls for that. All right, so yeah, before I show you guys this, because we're going to be kind of like after this, we're going to kind of move through a couple more things here. So one last thing, I guess, to decide for yourself. As a producer, as an engineer, as a whatever person in an industry, choose a mindset to live by. Choose a work ethic, a model. It's like this is pretty much my model, where it's to choose to be the katana over the Swiss Army knife. Meaning I specialize. When I say I do something, that's what I do. When I'm offered something counter to that, that's not what I do. Not because I can't, because I won't. Because I have a standard for myself, so don't ask me to do that work because it's no, that's beneath me. It's just I don't want to start building a portfolio that's hodgepodge and random. You know, it's like kind of hurts me after a while when I start doing a ton of work like that. But I also don't have to put in my demo reel if I need money. So that's another caveat I can do. But when I specialize and do certain things, the companies do not hit me up for anything else besides that because this is something that in the industry is a standard. You got to be able to sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm about. And then you say what you're about. And then they're like, all right, that's what you're about. Like, this is what I'm about, man. I make ambient music. You know, I create soundscapes, moods, and emotions to kind of amplify scenes. I also do 2-picture sound design. Here's my portfolio on my range of sound. And then I can produce composition, cut to picture, and paste to picture. So it's like, that's what I'm about. Do all the things and don't ask me for anything that I didn't list because they're not even going to be thinking about that. If they need it and they're like, well, this guy's super good, we don't have anybody else. Hey, dude, can you like make some orchestral dubstep real quick? I never asked you for that, but can you? Yeah, no problem. And that's happened to me before. And then like, yo, killed it. They love it. Uh, yeah, sign a contract, blah blah blah. Sign the 1099. So it's like that's the kind of thing that'll just happen when you start developing a repertoire with people. There's like, all right, well, this guy specializes in all this shit. So, it's like when I said, all right, don't ask me for a ton of tracks that are like beat oriented, blah, 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 like this. Please only give me stuff that's ambient, long form related like that. And so then I can sell a 75 track library that's all ambient music sold to specific needs for ambient music. And then whenever I want to do another thing like that, it's all ambient music. I have my other libraries to reference to get me more gigs. So the more stuff you have in one avenue, the more work you're going to get in that one avenue. So you have to push your way into the door for the first opportunity. And for me, it was like doing commercial stuff and being like, hey, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. Doing sound rescores or sound replacements. And literally like doing bootleg sound design cuts. And then using that as an example, and then people hire me for that. Completely legal and done all the time. So, it's kind of the way to get your foot in the door. It's like, oh, I can't get experience without experience. So catch-22, I suck. It's like, well, you can actually forge the experience right now with what you got. You just have to go and download the Transformers trailer, rescore it, and then that's the first piece of your reel. If you want to do ambient music to movies, get a movie scene, make some ambient music, put it on that movie. That's part of your reel. So what you want to do, you have to go and execute it, make it happen before you have the opportunity. So then once you get that opportunity, you're prepared. So that's like a huge motivational speaker thing. Success happens when preparedness meets opportunity. So you want all those things to come together in order to like make your career happen pretty much and start developing a name for yourself. Because I've been anonymous for most of my career and I've been smitten with it. Mainly because I don't like the limelight. And I also don't like being judged. So, here I am though, doing it anyways. Fuck it. So like it's the kind of thing that you just have to just go and set out to do. All right, so pretty much in summation to my entire lecture here, which is like a huge, I guess, me divulging life lessons at you for your mindset. Because when you sit down to produce, this is not even using a DAW. You need to be all the way there. You need to be there now. Like be here now. You need to be there now. And then you need to have like a 5-year plan. Where are you going to be? Because you're always being here now. So where are you going to be here now on the way to there? So that's your career ladder. Every step on that ladder is the next now. So every single step you take towards that goal will get you closer. It's not getting you farther back. Farther back is actually taking a step back, not going there anymore. You go somewhere else. You diverge. You're just like, you know what? I'm going to go work for Yelp. Fuck this. That's diverging. That's cutting yourself short, literally. Like imagine if Nickelback just gave up and never played any more music. And Chad Kroeger was just a dope bartender. I mean, that's a good example, though, because they all got signed in their, like, early 40s, dude. Could you imagine? That's easy dad rock money. Bro, come on. It's like, you can hate Nickelback all you want, but that's like your uncle. It's like, oh, shit, Uncle Steve got fucking signed. Damn. Dad was talking so much shit for so many years. All right. So now let's move on. So now moving into using shit. and executing, approaching the DAW. Now you have an idea of how to approach your career. In a general idea, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a composer for film? Do you want to go into games for implementation? Do you want to get into DSP for plugins? It's like think of every aspect of audio, and there's a way to get into that very specific aspect because of that one thing. Be a katana. So if you are really good at DSP, maybe you should make your own plugin. And then you make a really dope plugin. And then you have time to make music later after you make all this money off of your dope plugin. So there's ways to be good at multiple things. It's not jack of all trades, master of none all the time. You know, it's when you're the Swiss Army knife. It's when you're the master of none, because everything is just a quarter of its full self. You know. Anyways, so brain flow. So this is a old theory of the left brain, right brain mentality. And I call it the mentality because it's not a real theory. This means we're sound designing using our left brain and we're producing using our right brain. Haha. Nah, not happening. Sorry. Whoops. So if you ever heard left brain, right brain, that's incorrect. It's an old 1960s theory. Most 1960s theories about the brain are very, very wrong. They're all based off assumption and all this other shit, not based in actual science because we didn't even have the science to like study that stuff back then. So that's something that was told to me by a teacher once. Like, this is how you should approach blah, blah, blah because of left brain, right brain mentality. And it's like, well, I mean, that's kind of a thing, but it's not. So don't even think about your brain like that. Think about it just all working. And your brain is working, you know. There's not 10% working all the time. And you got 100% you're going to be Lucy, bro. It's like, no. It's just all firing when it needs to. It's like we assume it's just like going to become telepathic if we use all of it. So, you know, this is kind of the whole thing about it, though, is that we know both the sides of our brain are different, but, you know, exactly to this point. Omnidirectional, so it's two hemispheres, but it's firing from all over. So that's just kind of demystifying that. So don't worry about that specifically. But your brain does have like a way it gets inspired and a way it kind of digests logical material. So this is right in the sense that when we are doing one thing, it's harder to do the other. So that's the grain of truth in this, because they're making this assumption back in the 60s because of this self-evident fact of when I'm doing stuff that's more logical, it's harder to do stuff more intuitive. So when you're trying to learn your DAW, when you're trying to learn a synth, when you're trying to learn music theory, when you're trying to learn how to drop a clip, how to warp, how to do everything in your DAW literally, you are on this side of thinking, not the side of the brain. But you're thinking logically, which is not so different from intuitive, because when you're well versed and well learned, I guess, in specific parts of your DAW, it becomes muscle memory because your brain is a muscle. We do know that. So when you get used to doing certain things in a DAW, meaning you've made so many tracks, you just sat down and made shit over and over and over and over and over and over, and you have a folder full of shit somewhere and you have folders full of shit somewhere else, then you're going to be able to sit down and just make diamonds. Because now you've gone through all the shit. You know all the different possibilities. There's a grain of like perfection in each of those as well. Each failed track will net a new technique. Like, keep that in mind. Try something new every track. You're going to have something new to do next track. So always be trying to push yourself to that next level. And I actually did give that explanation of like, you know, I live by, you know, a couple different things where it's like, you know, so I'm not a very religious person, so I live by these philosophies and shit where it's like cacophony society influences me a lot. And cacophony society is like the a group of people who created Burning Man, essentially. A bunch of writers and artists and stuff. One of them being Chuck Palahniuk, the dude who, oh, see ya. One of them being Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote like Fight Club and all those different books back in the 90s. And so their mentality about Burning Man when it started was to make the statement and then to do it twice as hard next year. And whoever wanted to be in it next year could be. And if that person who was in it last year decided to do it somewhere else, but they're doing it with the same intention, they could. So it's all inclusive. Anywhere you decide to do it, you are part of the burn. That's the essence of Burning Man. Is that all inclusive means you're on this earth, so you're included. It's not you need to be on the playa. It's like if Burning Man was happening and you decided to do Burning Man as well in somewhere else, that's still Burning Man. You can have Burning Man wherever you want. Burning Man's not owned by anything, So it's like that's my mentality. Say even with just this, it's like I'm giving out this free resource. I'm trying to create something that's actually like high level, and I'm giving out for free with the intention of helping people and hopefully helping the scene. I don't know. And it's stuff I've done before, I've taught, but now I'm doing it on such a high level now that it's a lot of shit. So I'm literally, and when I go and make these classes, I'm doubling down each time, and I'm trying to make it better. I'm not like losing steam. I'm saying, all right, now I did this, now I need to keep doing that. So it's not like I'm gonna, because that's part of my work ethic. Once I do one thing with it, it's like I want to keep doing that because it made it nice, made it presentable. Um, so that's part of my workflow with just everything. It's like I have different spots where I know it's like, okay, I can achieve this in this amount of time. I can do this like this, like edit, automate, blah, blah, blah. You're able to like keep it all organized for your own workflow. So there's a couple tricks in here, tips or whatever, for boosting creativity. Also for getting past writer's block, whatever. So this is a really good one. It's talking about games, whatever, anything deductive. You want to do stuff where you're learning, getting your brain to stretch out. When your brain's learning, time slows down. You experience time slower. And then when you go to sleep that night, your brain digests what it just learned during that day. So there's like a whole thing that happens when you learn something during the day. And then the consistent learning of things slows down time consecutively. It's not actually slowing down time, it's like a perceived time. So that's why school seems longer when you're a kid, because you're learning something new every single day. We think we don't need it, but then we're like, oh yeah, I guess I needed basic algebra. So then you can go and do other stuff later on in life, but now it's in your long-term memory, and it should be somewhat reflexive. Not all learning is like that, specifically with language, hence why most people can't speak Spanish if they took Spanish in high school for 5 years. It's not very conversative. It's like literally not the way to learn it. More schools are doing the Rosetta Stone stuff now, though, so it's a little bit better. But yeah, it's kind of like learning C++ or any other programming language. If you're not actively using it, implementing it, knowing what it does, and then speaking it, meaning talking to a computer, then you're not going to internalize it. It doesn't become an experience. You don't take the knowledge that you just learned, say, from a class or a tutorial or whatever, and then apply it, in the way it's supposed to be applied, which is for the theory of it, not for the exact one instance. That's like learning how to do a polynomial, but only for one problem. It's like good luck with calculus, dude. Because you check the back of the book for the answer. Okay, so that's my whole point here. Is like we have to internalize information in order to turn it into intuition. So assimilation becomes intuition. The more we assimilate and listen to music, the more we'll be able to, not necessarily recreate that music, but in the next thing we do, we might be influenced on making some decision because of something that we now got influenced by, which is now part of our taste, something we like, It's like, oh, I want to do like, I want to use some bell tones or whatever, or like a gliss sound because Flylo did it, and I just want that at the beginning of the track because it's pretty. And you just do that. It's not Flylo. Flylo doesn't own a, gliss or bell tones. As long as you don't like copy the exact style, you can be influenced by people. That's not off limits. And copying someone directly is not off limits either. It's not off limits, it's just ethically off limits. Have fun sleeping at night. Okay, so if you have a problem getting this into your lifestyle, say with specifically music, because we're not talking about anything else here, but this is life shit. So first step, learn your DAW. So you need to be able to navigate your DAW. If you can't navigate your DAW, you don't know key commands, you don't know how to get through menus, workspace managing things, it's got to be, nailed down before approaching, a big production session. So knowledge has to become experience in order to be applicable in the future. Pretty much. I mean, think about it. You learn from your past mistakes, right? If you don't learn from your past mistake, you repeat your mistake. So then you didn't learn. So not learning when you should have learned is the definition of stupid. And then knowing that you don't want to learn is ignorant. So then you keep making the same mistake, and then you keep pushing yourself farther back. And now that's not like making a mistake producing. Like, oh no, I used the wrong EQ, man. I'm trash. It's like, no, that's not the same thing. Making a mistake would be like choosing to make a certain style of music because now it's hot. That's a mistake. Pivoting your entire brand because you think it would be advantageous and opportunistic. That's a mistake. That's a big mistake. That's not a production mistake. Maybe leaving a minute and a half of silence at the end of your track is a mistake. Don't want to do that again. SoundCloud allows you to re-upload stuff, so not always bad. Could also be a selling point. You're like, oh yeah, I got that one track with the minute of silence. It's not a collector's item. So, is it a mistake? Happy accident. So in production, there's happy accidents. Mistakes happen when you don't know how to overcome roadblocks. So like if you're using your DAW and you keep on deleting shit, or you keep on doing something that's just like, bro, did you just delete that track and save? The fuck, bro? Like that's a mistake. Like the kind of stuff where it's like, oh man, yeah, the track's gone, I don't know how to get it back. It crashed. Mistake is saying track's gone, I don't know how to get it back, it's trashed. It's like you can get it back, you can do all these other things to find your stuff. If you're in Ableton and it gets corrupt, you can always send it to Ableton, they'll fix it. There's ways around everything. So you got to just know how to pivot when a roadblock comes up, and you'll always be kind of moving forward. With a DAW, the roadblock is knowing how to use it. So you need to know your key commands, you need to know, again, your menus, how to manage your workspace, which is opening and closing plugins quickly, and using the Finder to find things. In every DAW, you shouldn't be really using a mouse to go and grab something. If you have to use your mouse to use something, find a way to not. And then force yourself to do that over and over and over and over and over. For me, it was Command F in Ableton. And now whenever I'm in Ableton, I want something, I type it in. And then, double click, enter, drag it in if it wants to load up, of course. So that's the kind of thing that's a huge workflow thing, because why? If I wanted to load up operator here, and didn't have it like this, I have to go and click here, I have to go and load an operator. It's like a bunch of menus that I'm having to go and kind of sift through. Specifically when you're looking up, a snare or whatever. You have your sample library organized and you have snares where they should be, and you know how to find that snare. It's always going to find those things, and they're in the right spot, Now I'm going to look through 10 different folders just to find one pack. They're all in the same place. So that's another part of knowing your DAW is you know how to navigate it. You know how to summon things and use things quickly. You want to be able to, the minute you have an idea for a plugin, load it and then start using it. Not have to take literally a minute to go and find it. If you take over a minute to find something, then it becomes this like, oh, now I'm finding it, and then you lose your inspiration. Like inspiration can be so fleeting that literally taking 30 seconds could like make your mind wander, and now all of a sudden you forgot what you're doing. And that's me. That's me personally. You know, I don't know about you, but sometimes that's the case. If an idea is really stuck in my head, then I won't lose it. You know, but that's kind of like the whole point with that is to be able to hold on to it, execute it as quickly as possible. And second step is knowing the sound. So not only do you know how stuff works, but you know how to apply that stuff. So when you're going down to sit like behind a console, you know, mix like a rock track or whatever, you know where to go for that type of sound. You're mixing jazz, you're going for this sound. You're not always doing everything with like 1000% distortion on everything. You know, you're able to pivot for different situations. You know, so if you're working with a producer, you're collaborating, you know how to pivot and give them space to work. That's the biggest thing that like it hinders collaborations is that people don't know how to manage their own time on a DAW. And they'll sit down and bogart it for a couple hours and then it's like, oh, it's sick, dude. Dope, I'll work on it. 20 minutes goes by. Oh, dude, let me fuck with that for a second. Another 2 hours. Like, okay, dude. So I'm gonna go. uh, so it's like that's not giving someone space. When you go and sit on the DAW for 2 hours and then you're trying to like, but yeah, come over, because I'll only work on it if you're here. It's like, well, all right, well then, it's over, man. But yeah, so I mean that's a huge part of it, knowing your approach to working with somebody and then how to execute that, so you know how to make your synth sounds work in other people's DAWs, and you know how to bring your sample library to their studio and work with them. So you want to do that. And then third step is refine. So learn your DAW, learn your sound, execute it, and then do all that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So if you do this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, then you'll get really good. So what's a thing that you should tell yourself, all 24 of you who are here right now? If you're having trouble getting yourself to a point where you can feel like, hey, I got traction. Hey, I got stacks of fire. Set a goal for yourself. Like right now. Set a goal for yourself. I'm going to write a track at least once a day or at least every other day. You don't have to finish a track, but you want to sit down behind the DAW and get behind the DAW at least once a day. If you're like struggling to find time for it, find time for it. Literally. There is time for your DAW. 1000%. You know, like when I was working like 3 jobs and shit, I was still sitting down for a couple hours a night making music. I'd be sleeping like at 1 o'clock and waking up at 6 in the morning, but you know, I still got a couple hours in there. Able to sit down, make a beat or whatever, and just chill. Because it wasn't like I was sitting down to work. It was like me sitting down in the DAW at that point was like me sitting down and watching Netflix. You know, it's like me chilling. Now I'm chilling to write beats. You know, and that chilling to write beats is still moving forward. It's not like I moved backwards by chilling on releases for a bit and just making beats for myself. Didn't get worse, that's for damn sure. It's like I've been making music almost every day for the last 10 years, dude. There's very few days I go without like touching a DAW. And it's just like, it's so reflexive at this point. It's like, all right, I'm going to go make music now. I'll sit down for like 2-3 hours, execute an idea, and then move on, do something else, whatever, depending on what mood I'm in. You know, if I just want to sit down and do something, you know, productive. So that's what you need to set for yourself. You need to set goals. You need to set different ways of, you know, hey, I love Ablation. I love Reese. Yeah, so you need to set goals for yourself where you're saying, I'm going to do this. Like if you want to get somewhere with your production and you already have steady releases, all this stuff, management, whatever, and you want to get something done with your production, move towards that every day. Like I remember when I was learning how to produce and all that shit, I was just like learning about Massive, whatever, and FM8. And I was just like, I'm going to learn FM8 and I'm going to use it every single day until I'm able to sit down in that shit and just kind of use it. So everybody's just like, oh, it's too confusing, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I feel like it can be cool. This is me back in like 2010, 2011. So then just me after that, every day when I had opportunity, sit down, make a couple patches, put that in a sample library, whatever, I have my keychain, and then just move on. And I just keep patches on my keychain. Like, yeah, just felt like sitting down and making some F-mite patches, mate. Just chilling. So you gotta set goals like that for yourself in order to keep moving forward and growing healthily with a steady growth plan, pretty much. It's like you don't want to be thinking about all that shit. That's fine, but you do need to set goals for yourself. Like that's healthy. Like if you think it's dumb or gay to set goals, then you should check yourself. And sorry if I offend anybody saying that. I'm not exactly straight, so it's all good, man. But it's good to keep yourself accountable. You got to be accountable to yourself because at the end of the day, you got to sleep with yourself. You're in your body. You got to live with yourself. So you got to make sure that you're self-perpetuating your own goals. And so, I mean, in this instance here, I'm giving an example to the opposite. It's easy to compare ourselves to others because some people by nature do not wait for instruction. So that specific example is somebody who knows nothing out there in the world killing it, still knows nothing. They're self-perpetuating themselves because every decision they make is something they like, they're doing for themselves. They don't give a shit what anybody thinks, and they still put it out. Like, yo, this is dope. I like it. And I like really dope music. And because I like really dope music, and I like this, and I think that's dope, I think my shit's dope. Is my shit dope? And you find out, oh shit, it's dope. I guess I got good taste. Because when you know how stuff should sound, you can sit down very objectively with your own stuff and say, all right, so I need to work on my mix. I need to do this. I need to do that, blah, blah. But the idea is there, so don't get down on yourself immediately. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's done that 10 to 20 year cycle where you can look at Tiesto and just be all pissed off. Like, bro, you really want Tiesto's seat as Tranch God? Like, I don't think so. You just love to hate. Not that I give a shit about Tiesto. Just an example. Just a waste of energy. But yeah, so, even with this example though, not waiting for instruction, that comes with a different problem is they pretty much don't know how to take instruction. It's not that they don't wait, it's that they just don't know how. So they don't listen to people. And so that can bite them in the ass. And it probably does on the regular and just general life. And then with music, they're killing it. But then that one thing, it's just killing them, man. They keep on making the bad decisions. But that's really where it comes from, is they're not listening to people, and they need to listen. So they need to listen that, there's new shit out. Fucking get up to par, bro. Catch up. It's like, sit down and learn. It's like, it's not cool to learn, dude. It's cool to learn. It's cool to be up on your shit. Sit down and learn and approach it humbly. Like, I don't know anything. Teach me the basics. And then you can learn it. So, that's the kind of thing that, like, say if like you're struggling with that, and like I struggled with that definitely at one point, because I was full-time bass player doing all this stuff with like metal and all this shit, touring band, all this stuff, and then I just hit a point where I was just like, is there any more different tap sweeps I can do? Is there any more different time signatures I can try out? And I just got bored. I stopped growing, and I stopped being happy playing bass. And then I found jazz again, started making beats, and then I got into sound design. And that like really renewed my love for music. Just because I plateaued and I didn't see different ways to go and apply it more. I didn't want to be like this Mr. Virtuoso solo bass player. I just wanted to be in a band and have fun. So that's kind of the mentality with it, is that I realized I plateaued and I was aware of it. I was like, how do I not do this again? And it's not like I plateaued with bass and I still play all the time. But it's not my main focus anymore. Although it was my life up until I picked up a DAW, which was like 9 all the way up until like 17, 16. But yeah, so, you know, overall, like we've talked about a ton of shit today. Last couple of things, and this is why I left this part really short. This is what you need to make your workflow quick. So I put these things up here because we just talked about that. You need to be up in your key commands. We're about to talk about a template. But these are for your hardware needs. So if you don't have a computer that is up to par, find a way to get there. If you can't afford a Mac, maybe think about pivoting to Windows. Find a way where you can make it accessible for yourself. It is not inaccessible. You're not powerless from getting a good machine and executing the high level shit. It's super easy to get access to that stuff. If specifically the example of getting a Windows machine, you can get payment plans very easily with that. With a Mac, it's a little bit harder, but still possible. You know, say with like my setup, I'm also doing a payment plan. So Mac Mini costs a lot. Hard times, man. So, you know, you gotta make the sacrifice for what you need right now, and then you can progressively pay that off. So a solid state drive, that's something that's very crucial. You need that inside of your computer, if not as your sample library too. And that's for speed of use. And what I do is I create a partition for my samples, and it's like 150 gigabytes on my computer using disk utility. And so it's on its own solid state partition. And these are my main samples, hence why I'm not going to really add any more to these. If I add any more, I'll be taking stuff out. Stuff that I don't use anymore. Because this is my immediate sample use. Stuff I'm always going to be referencing. Why do I want it to be on the same partition as the main hard drive? I want it to be as fast as possible. I don't want there to be any connection besides its own internal platter. So that's what I'm looking for from it. Then I have this 2 terabyte solid state external. So this is doing all my extra stuff. I'm actually able to play sessions off here as well. So solid state external, definitely worth the investment. Now they're cheaper than ever. You can get 1 terabyte for approximately $120. So yeah, I do feedback, Ibby. We're not doing feedback today, but we will soon. Join the Discord and you can go and check it out. But yeah, so, you know, that's a huge thing. Just setting up your workflow inside of your DAW. Again, making sure samples are in a nice, easy to find spot. I also go and drag some of them into my places here, and then also have a separate folder for all of my Ableton session resamples. So I have separate places where I put separate types of samples. So these are all my sample packs. Well, not there, but here. Samples in my actual samples drive, which I can then go into Ableton. I have access to right here. Pretty much it always loads them up like extremely quick. And it got way quicker when I partitioned it to my internal drive. So super huge thing for workflow. And then, yeah, pretty much beyond that, you want to have a good interface. So if you don't have a good interface, your internal clock on your laptop or computer is decent. It's good. But definitely want to get something with a well-known good clock. So if you're working on a budget, a Focusrites are really, really reliable. I have a Motu ultralight MK3, and it can get up to 196. Costs $500. Decent. And I got it on a payment plan from Sweetwater. To Stosie's question, yes. Just because you're referencing one file structure, and I compartmentalized where those samples were. So when it goes and references like the entire hard disk, it actually is not referencing the entire hard disk. It's only referencing those samples. So there's less stuff to look through pretty much when Ableton's looking for stuff inside of that place. Less to index. And this is something that I developed with Pro Tools, because this is kind of a workflow thing with Pro Tools, and we used to do round robin recording, especially if we were doing it at 96K, because then we'd round robin record tracks to multiple hard drives, so we can get multiple hard drives, sometimes on RAID drives, to run multiple tracks with like huge like string sessions and stuff with like 50, 60 tracks or whatever. We need everything to be like super on point. Round robin, using multiple drives in order to reference different parts of the session. Then you can also do the same thing with your contact players and source stuff from your drives as well, like that. Offload stuff into RAM, all types of shit. And then beyond that, you have a eGPU. So the processor in your computer, which is right here, be listed, and the Mac Mini, this is why I got the Mini, because of the overclocking processor with 6 cores. I would prefer 12 core, but the i7 3.2 is a selling point for me for sure. The graphics card is decent. 1.5 megabytes. I would prefer 3 gigs. 1.5 gigs. I would prefer 3. And then I have room for 2 more chips, so I have 64 gigs possible in here, but I only paid for 32. And this is a 2018, so it's not super brand new Mac Mini. But yeah, decent enough to do everything I need, and definitely a step up from my laptop. But then I'm going to step up further and do graphics processing, all this other stuff, by getting an eGPU that allows me to allow 2 to 3 more graphics cards hooked up to my Mac. So I can start doing high-level gaming or whatever I want to do, pretty much. Mostly just for graphics rendering, and do a lot of stuff in Blender, and make a bunch of shaders and stuff. So yeah, a ton of stuff with that. If you're looking for workflow stuff to get you started quicker, that's like loading up your DAW, literally. Turning on your DAW, loading up shit, everything referencing. If you're finding it taking 10 minutes, 2 things could be happening. A, your DAW's referencing too much of your RAM, and your computer's not strong enough, so it's just slow by default. Or B, your drive is a little bit too full, could be fragmented a little bit, meaning that there's files that it's lost track of. It's even left the counter for that data, so meaning it could be like 798, but you have 10 gigabytes of data that's just kind of like floating around, not even accounted for. That's fragmenting your drive, and it could crash your drive at some point. So what happens though is it progressively slows down, and that fragment becomes bigger over time. So if you find your shit slowing down and you keep cleaning your drives out and it's still slow, your battery could be dying. Your processor is more noticeable, meaning your shit will crash and it's over. Once your processor's done, computer's done. But if it's just running poorly, it could be your battery, because the processor's not getting enough power now. This is specifically with laptops. Or it can be a RAM chip failing. It could also be your hard drive fragmenting. So best thing to do in that situation, because my laptop actually did this, is go and back up everything to a new drive, completely wipe your internal drive all the way, and pretty much first date it to the point of factory default, and then And this is like in a very drastic situation where shit's just really broken. Best way to do it is to not install everything from the time machine because you don't want to reinstall like any fragmented material. If you have something like Clean My Mac, this is an amazing program. I do this all the time, and I'll just run optimization, and I can find all the shit that needs to be done, everything that needs to be ran for maintenance, including my external drives, and then everything needs to be uninstalled. Also empties my trash bin like fully. There's no purgeable data in it, which is a new thing with Catalina. Huge program, really, really sick. I love it. Makes shit super easy. So that's something you should definitely, kind of get up to speed on if you're not, just with your actual drives. Like if you don't have a solid state, you should definitely look into getting one, start building a fund for it, or try to work out the most cost-effective solution for you. Internal solid state is what you want. You want your OS to be on solid state, so everything runs quickly and snappy. I switched snappy with quickly. Damn you, dyslexia. Okay, so last couple points here. So, setting up a template. So we're going to talk about this more because there's millions of ways to set up a template. But here's my approach with it because I've gone a bunch of different ways with it. So this is my specific workflow style. I'm very maximalist, meaning I like to use a lot of plugins, I use a ton of processing, and I get the most out of the least amount of material. So I'm looking for the most complex sound from one track. I'm not necessarily looking for a ton of layers, but I will add layers if it needs it. So I will end up getting 50 to 70 tracks at the end of the day, just from adding more ear candy and stuff for breaks and intros to make it more complex and unique. But I'm very minimalist, so I tend to like 20 tracks. Like if I can have 20 tracks in a dub or an album track, I'm really happy because it's just a little bit more intimate, and also to me feels like it could be performed because a lot of those things are like one big cohesive chunk of sound or something like that. So stuff I like to do specifically. So because of that, if I have a ton of tracks in my template session, then I don't have room to think. And this is something with creatives. Like if you ever worked, well, just in SF, this is just such a thing because everybody's so like app dev, startup culture about everything that they're just like, even, trying to set the trend with even just ways of thinking, or just everybody has a standing desk at here. We all stand. Our CEO has a treadmill at his desk and he's always walking. But it makes us faster. He's walking into the future. That's his. It's like, oh, he's an idea man, huh? But I mean, it's kind of mentality with it. It's kind of have to be, have open room for a good chi flow. It's kind of like setting up a room. If you're worried about the vibe in your room, make sure there's space on both left and right of your bed, because you want room to breathe while you're sleeping. And then if there's a window, it shouldn't really be obstructed when you open your door, because it makes your whole room feel bigger when door connects to other open thing. Hence why most houses are centered around front door straight into the back door. Just good energy flow. So I keep the same mentality here, where this is my template. This is my actual template, but I've set this template up. There's a couple things in here. So something I do, and this is like this is for Ableton as well. So if you're in Fruity Loops, definitely apply this for you. But yeah, and here you can set your default set as your default, or your current set as your default. So For this, I just kept it as the original one, and then I added a couple key commands. So here's what you need by default, ready to go, just to be quick. You need your stop button. So for me, that's right above return, and that's the /. And then record. And that's the close bracket right next to that /. So whenever I'm in my DAW anywhere, if I want to go right back to the beginning, I just hit that, hit play, good to go. And then if I'm in my DAW anywhere else and I want to start recording, I just hit that, and then I'm good to go. We are recording. Cool. So whenever I'm playing, I just have to hit that or that to stop, go back to the beginning, or start recording whenever I have an idea. So I want that to be quick. I don't want to think about it. I want to have to go and use my mouse. I don't want to use more than a move to a point and then I'm going. Because for me as the musician, I just need it to all be there. I need it to be fluid and happening. In order for me to be creative and inspired while I'm doing it. Recording can be very sterile, so that's something that definitely you need to have for yourself. And then I will usually set this after I open it up if I need it. But I also like to have markers set. So M here, and then I'll put N and comma. So I can just go around, and this is like something I do specifically when I'm working with picture and stuff. I'll just go around like, oh, hit points, hit points, hit points, hit points, hit points, and then I can go reference left and right from there, jump around the entire session super quickly. Hit points, nice. Markers. So this exists in every single DAW, including the ability to jump left and right. So in Ableton, you can just go and set all that shit for yourself. Right here, there's buttons for all of it. So I definitely have that on, and some of these have them by default. So that's key commands that you should be up on. Those are basic key commands. How to record, how to hit play, how to stop. Not everything has that. So spacebar only hits play on and off, which references from the start cursor. So hitting double stop puts you right at the beginning of the session. So you want to have that quick thing so you can go and like, all right, from the top, let's go. And then just kind of like keep working through it. Move around your session really quickly, you know, with your markers, and you can set that locator. And then after the last one, it'll just nudge you to the end of the session. Yeah, so those are a couple of the basic ones. And then there's one. So this has a clip in it on purpose because this is something I use a lot. So I wanted one clip to have MIDI mapping already. So in here, or key mapping. So this little audition button, which turns on being able to hear a note, I assign that to the little comma or apostrophe right next to QWERTY 1. So I can turn that on and off. Literally just a small thing. But whenever I'm drawing in here, I never have to turn it on manually. I'm always just hitting that one note. Or that one key. So that's stuff I specifically need for my workflow. Things I've noticed that take me like a couple seconds just along the way to do. So just eliminate all that stuff, and I don't have to worry about it. So I'm always just using key commands to get stuff. Now I want to load a kit that I like, you know, then I'll go directly to a kit that I've named somewhat off the kind of like file base, so it's easier to find. Yeah, so I'll always know where things are. I can type in these random names that's like, oh, I need shaker. And I know that this is a specific shaker rack that I made and I like. And then if I need to find them, I can just do this really quick. It did this so quickly because they're all on one partition. So I was going to find it like within a couple seconds. Yeah, so that's just one thing I assign in here. So if you hit Command K, you can map it to a bunch of things. You can even map it to the nudge for going step forward or backward. You can change it to your loop set. You can nudge forward or backward in your global quantization. So you can do all this stuff, and this can be like live stuff for you to do. Fold is also another good one to try out as a key command. Sometimes I put that as like F, and then I'll, have the ability to just fold down the track if I want to, and then put on addition mode. So you want to be able to organize your MIDI and then be able to hear it. That's something that is actually kind of a workaround in some other DAWs. So that's huge, huge part of the workflow. Just being able to hear shit and draw on notes really quickly. And then finally, say with Ableton, and this is a Mac native thing, but there are ways to do this in Windows. And I've definitely talked about how to make these key commands before, but I have separate key commands for specifically freeze, flatten, unfreeze. So in here, keyboard, you go to shortcuts, then you go to app shortcuts, then you find Ableton, hit the little plus button, you can find Ableton from the list, then you type in the command, letter for letter and space for space. So there can't be any spaces at the end, there's a space in the middle, needs to be there. If there's a capital letter in the middle of a word, it needs to be there. So it needs to be exactly as it exists in the menu in Ableton. Type it in that, and then you just hit the combination, a modifier, which is called Control, Option, or Command, plus, other keys. So you can actually add Shift to that as well. So what I did was I added Control F as freeze track, and then Control F as unfreeze track. So whenever one is running, the other is not in existence on the track. So right click, we hit freeze. Now right click again, unfreeze. We do not see a freeze command. We see a flatten command. So now we have freeze and unfreeze. So because I have the maps, I can hit Control F, goes back and forth. And then I added another command for flatten specifically, and that's Control Shift F. So I can go, freeze this and then Control Shift F flatten, and now I have it in audio. So literally within like a couple like keys, I converted that to audio without having to right click once. And that doesn't exist in this menu. Like there's no key command for it, so you're gonna have to like do that if you want this key command to exist, which it should. Doesn't make any sense. Every other DAW has like some type of offline bounce button. So that will be something of a thing at some point. I don't know. When it is a thing, I won't have to have the key command anymore, but because it's not, I have a key command for it. Okay, so that's what you need to start thinking about. So now say if you are trying to make it easier for yourself, and you know your workflow, you know the sounds that you like this drum kit, for example, say if I use in everything, this is now part of my template, shakers, snares, basic subs, mid basses that you like to start as sound design tools from, maybe a serum instance, maybe a phase plant. But yeah, so you definitely gotta, just prep yourself with what you need. Personally, I like the minimalist aspect because it allows me to go in Command F, find whatever I want, add another track with Command T, Command Shift T gives me MIDI. So I know those things. I can go find anything to occupy that. I can hit enter twice to go and load it onto a track. As long as I know that, then I don't even need to think about it. I want reverb. I want compressor. I want glue compressor. Fuck it, I want vitamin. So I'm not using my mouse at all. I'm just using my keyboard. And when I want to go and scroll down a list, I'm using up and down on the arrow keys, and I'm never taking my hand off of the keyboard. So you can go from the counter here into the list. That's very, very good to know. One thing that they took out is you used to be able to add punctuation to the middle of like a word or a plugin, and it will only find plugins, but now it does not do that. So maybe a glitch before, but it's a glitch I noticed and I used to use a lot just to find serum, because whenever I type in serum, obviously it's pretty deep in the list. So what I do is I'll just go and, you know, if I really want to be like just using this, but you know, I'll just go and click in here once I have it typed in though, you know, so I'm still typing it in. So if I have to go and dig into a plugins list, it's already typed in. Now I don't even have to filter through all of these, you know, so I don't have to look for X. Like, where is X in the alphabet again? Ah, there it is. So whenever I have something that's like a 30-second to 40-second just like lag time in between me making something happen, I try to think of like, all right, that took some time. Like literally, like there was just some lag time between me doing something very easy and making something happen. So that's just like loading up a plugin or whatever. I'm gonna sit and take as much time as I want with automation, with production. But with loading something up, making an effect happen, whatever, I want to be able to just summon that. There's also other programs that allow you to do this kind of stuff. There's a live enhancement suite, which it's all right. It's a little bit buggy. I don't really recommend it just because it's just too buggy. I really tried to implement it and get into the class, but I just don't trust it at this point. Not yet, especially not with Catalina. So I don't really recommend it yet, but it's really cool. I recommend just getting it and trying it, but do know that there's some kinks they need to work out. Like it allows you to right click in here and load up any plugin from a right click, which is cool. Awesome. There's a ton of coding you have to do in order to make the list, and that creates a ton of problems. So you actually have to do coding for it. So that becomes kind of a big roadblock. It's not very accessible because of that. But yeah, so like setting up this specifically, so I talked about how to set up like solid state drives for quick reference, and then talking about how to find stuff really quickly, know where to look for it. But finally, like we talked kind of like about sample libraries and stuff and organizing it, but you need to organize your sample library at some point. And I remember one time, I think I was talking to Swarty from M Machine, something I forget. And it's talking like, oh, so what do you do with your sample library? I'm like, oh yeah, I just got like, you know, a ton of shit where I need it, a lot of things organized, blah blah blah. And he's like, oh yeah, well, I just find myself, you know, getting bored of them, so I never take the time. So because I'm usually just like not using those samples again, so why should I take the time? And you know, my next question was, what samples is he using? Because Deadly Drums came out 6 years ago, and I'm still using it. This Carmack kit, very long time ago. Esta kit, Evil Needle kit, very long time ago. Genghis's sample pack also. You know, so all these, and it's like this Jungle sample pack, the Boom Bap. It's like these are probably 20 years old samples. So really, it's about organizing what you like. You know, so like it's not worthless to organize your sample library in general. It's just worth it for you if you have a ton of shit and you just want to like one time I had a huge library that was full of packs like this, and then I was like, I don't want to be full of those packs anymore. I just want to throw those out, get the good stuff, and be done with it. And so that's what I did. Now I got 150 of that era of samples, 150 gigs. I mean, got a ton of shit in here, including a bunch of my stuff as well. Just stuff that's in one library. If I need anything for any situation, including stuff to picture, it's all right here. If I need a riser for EDM, right here. If I need some leaf crunches for Foley, it's right here as well. So just kind of my on-the-go sample library. Again, to the point of, are you prepared when you go collaborate with somebody? It's like, oh yeah, I brought my laptop, dude. I got these ideas here. Here, let me throw you some stems. Ha, no problem. We can just fuck with this shit. No problem. Like, oh, let me plug in my sample library. Yeah, we can use this stuff. So, like, that's going to be part of your workflow because you know your own library, you know where to find stuff. Personally, I like using other people's libraries. I'm just like, oh yeah, tell me how this works. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I'll just go dig in their shit for a bit. I'm like, oh, can I trade you for this one? This one good. Like, yeah, but give me this. Like, oh, can't have the Carmack pack, bro. I shouldn't even have it. But yeah, you can have the Carmack pack, bro. Okay. So there's going to be more stuff we're going to talk about with organizations specifically. We've talked about naming conventions and stuff in sampling class, so apply that there as well. But you need room to think. You need space to execute. In summation, with all this, you need to know how it works. You need to know how you work. Like, I guess that's the overall lesson of the day is you need to know how you work too in an industry and how to conjure and keep momentum and stay motivated, stay inspired by yourself. Set goals for yourself and achieve those goals. And then make new goals that are twice as big and realistic. So then they become twice as realistic because they weren't realistic before, but now since you achieved the last one, that one that was unattainable is now realistic. It's the next point from there. So you got to set those spots for yourself, or else your workflow just will never form, literally, because you're not able to keep yourself on a regimen of making music. So then you never get momentum with having enough music to release. You never have enough momentum when writing these checks you can't cash with, like, I got this amount of music, I'll send it to you here. It's like, I've done that with people, but that's because I didn't want to send it to them, not because I didn't have the music. I never tell somebody I have music when I don't. If I don't send it to them, it's because I've decided to go a different direction. Sometimes I'll tell them about it, sometimes I won't. Same way a label will tell you, we're going this way with it, sorry, man. Or, it's coming out right now, how dare you release it? That's happened like a couple times. Only almost happened with Rain Dance with Division, because they were supposed to release my entire album, then just went with that one track, and then that track was supposed to be on my album, and now I was gonna release it, and then I was like, oh, we need that track and a couple other ones to hold on back. I was like, So, I mean, labels can kind of throw you around like that. It just happens with every label. You just have to get used to it. But having a workflow with it is huge, because when a label throws you around and dicks you around like that, you're not even cruxed on them. You're not waiting on them. You're already writing your own checks and cashing them pretty much. It's like you have momentum, and then you keep that momentum up with something. You're keeping yourself engaged with music, putting yourself out there and all that shit. Super crucial. All right, so I want to actually watch this with you guys. For whoever is still here, this is a really good video. I highly recommend you guys watch this series. But this will be the end of class here. Let me actually answer a couple questions while I skip these ads.
With what?
Yeah, I don't like the enhance the suite. Yeah. Do I recommend organizing pack genre type of sound? That really is on you. So if you want to go and like organize your snares by genre type or snare type, that's definitely worth it. If you have a bunch of snares that are like kind of like dark whatever, blah blah blah, you can put them in one big pack and just drop all the good snares in there. Don't even need to worry about it. So pretty much in summation of that, I just worry about type of sound. I'm not worried about genre, because then I can scroll through and find all types of stuff. Yeah, so you do pretty much just have to take the time to go and sift through all of your sample packs. And that's sitting down for a day, rolling up a couple joints, going outside, chilling, and organizing your sample pack. Because pretty much, like, say like this, and I don't have this one organized because it's not that much. I've summed it up to things that I sometimes reference. I don't use much from this pack, or from these packs. But I will go to certain things, like the jungle packs a lot, and the flute pack a lot, and then John Casey's pack here. So, I mean, usually they're organized like this. So once you go and find all the snares you want, open up a new Finder, and pretty much just start dragging and dropping. First thing you want to do though is create the hierarchy. So if you're doing drums, you want to go and find pretty much all these drum types. I got a lot of bongos. Bongos get their own folder. Claps get their own folder, obviously. Cymbals, a lot of different types in there. Hi-hats, closed and open. Full loops, which is full drum loops. And then loops, which are defined by type. So there's a ton of different stuff in there. More auxiliary percussion. There's a couple different folders in here as well. So when I'm in here, I'll just go and organize by kind. It's usually a safe bet. If you're looking in Ableton, it'll always be organized by kind. You won't see any of the ASD files. The only reason you can see them in Ableton is because of the ASD file. Okay, so that's definitely stuff to keep in mind. So stuff like this, if I ever get like a very specific artist pack, that's like Levitate, Shades pack, Chi pack, that stays in its own pack. I like artist packs to stay in their own packs because I don't want any of their samples to mix into my samples, and now I start thinking that their sound is my sound. When I want to use some Levitate drums, I'll go to Levitate drums, and then I'll know I use the Levitate perk or I use the Levitate snare, and then I can give proper credit. You know, somebody really liked that snare and commented on it and made a huge thing about it. I'd be like, oh, it's a Levitate snare. Big ups Levitate. And then that's free promo for him. So I prefer to give credit where credit's due. If I'm using Levitate snare, I'm going to give credit to Levitate. If I, just like anything else here. These are actually super good. Let's make some Ivy Lab. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Like, most of the stuff that's misorganized here are just kind of dropped in a big sample library. Is artist packs and very specific packs that I want to keep together. Like the 808 Warfare ones, I want to keep all those together because they all have a very specific sound. I want them to get mixed with my other 808s. This is a Vocaloid, so don't even worry about that. And then I have my resamples in this library too. And then I got this extra wave one. I didn't want to muddy it up because there's so many of them. It's a really, really ratchet one though. I like it. But yeah, so here's the final piece. So I was talking about Pharrell a bit, and to those of you stuck around, thank you. I mean, thank you for you, I guess, you know. Honestly, if somebody like told me about Pharrell, the way he thought about shit when I was like, I guess 21, 2019, around there, when I was like, I guess, first starting like my professional career, like this would have changed the way I went about everything in the industry. Just because Pharrell, the way he is, he's just very much like good vibes. He needs that vibe like all the time. If he's going to be vibing with somebody in studio, I just said vibe a lot, then he needs to be like on his A game, and he likes to bring that high level energy to the studio. But then he's also very aware that it takes like a ton of hard work. And we've already talked about how he's, you know, got history with like the Roots and Warehouse they were in and all that stuff. So he had the momentum and good vibes of his crew. But coming up around that, you know, he got momentum that he brought into the rest of his life, really. Same thing with Jay-Z, because Jay-Z definitely is a self-made kind of rapper as well. And definitely kind of came up off of Big L a little bit. Jay-Z kind of sounds like Big L a little bit. But, you know, so let's just check this out.
I can do everything that I've done with what I have. You guys are going to, you guys are the future deciders. You are going to change the world. Because look what I can do with just a high school education and a diploma.
When you were younger, did you know what you wanted to be in life?
I didn't know what I wanted to do at all, to be honest with you guys. All I knew as a kid is that I had like a really vivid imagination. I think being in Virginia, because we didn't have as many options as someone in a bigger city, you just don't even consider the fact that you could do or be whatever you wanted to be. And that, to me, that's the flaw in the system, because somehow our teachers were telling us that we could be anything we wanted to be, but it didn't resonate with me at all. I never, it's like that goes in one ear and out the other. It's like, you don't even consider it to like blow it off. I just remember always being curious. And so that's what kept me on the path of just sort of exploring, the arts, as in music and visual arts. You need to first figure what you really, really, really want to do. Do you want to do it because you've seen someone on TV look like they're having a lot of fun? Because I could really honestly give you just my last week and how I've, out of a week's worth of hours, probably only slept maybe 10 hours. That's how dedicated you got to be. So is that really what you want to do? Let's go backwards. Think about what you love to do. And think about what no one would ever, if you could just, your bills will be paid, but you could just do what you love to do all day long. That's probably where I would start. I seemingly stumbled into what it is that I did because I was curious about it, but now I realized it wasn't a mistake. I didn't fall into it. I was chasing a curiosity and it sort of led me here. So as long as you love it and you're curious about it and it keeps you going, the job and the way to get on will show you how to get there. This really has to be about you, because if you spend your time doing things for other people, you're going to look back and go, well, what about me? So if you don't pay attention to who you are, you cannot possibly be good to the next person. And if you could, ingeniously, it won't last for so long.
What advice would you give to a kid who comes from nothing?
Well, let's define what nothing is. When you say that you come from nothing, you're saying I come from nothing, like nothing. Do you know what nothing is? Nothing is a void. Nothing is deep space with no stars. Nothing is, it's not possible for you to exist in nothing. So there's no such thing as nothing. It's all relative. You have the same things that Bill Gates has, because just like him, when he dies, you know what you're going to take with you? That's exactly right. So while the apartment may smell funny, while there may be pests and rodents, because that's what people generally relate to nothing, right? Come from nothing. And the car is a Hyundai, if there is a car. Imagine the people who live out in remote villages that have never heard of the iPod, but they're happy. And they would argue with you when you tell them that they have nothing. Nothing is a perception. So if your reality is merely just your perception and a perspective, these things are interchangeable. So first, you need to, when you say you come from nothing, you should probably reevaluate that and think about it. Because if you're not cancer-stricken and you don't have AIDS and you have your legs and your fingers, I would say you have a little bit more than what you thought was nothing.
All right, definitely go and check out this Jay-Z one. I'll have to sit through that. But yeah, this is a super inspiring interview, just mainly because it's talking about his perspective on his own come up. It's like, it's true though. It's also what I've been talking about for the last couple hours, really, is like your opportunity is right in front of you. It's like if you have a computer, if you have the ability to make a track, you're an artist, you're ready to go. All you got to do is just go and do it. You can be at any level and still be accepted, like 1000%. You can have the right track for the right time for the right people, so it is all perspective, just like what is good, what is not good. What are you taking from people? What are you giving back? that's less of a perspective and more of a actual experience, because you're dealing with another person, you're having an exchange. He gives the example of like, do you feel like you lived for yourself at the end of the day? And if you end up being the yes man, then no, you weren't, because you were listening to what everybody else thought what you should be. And you let them tell you that, like, you should be this because I need it right now. Please be that. No problem. So that's not living for yourself, because you didn't dream that up, you know? It's not something you, I guess, it's not the air you breathe. You didn't wake up that day and say, this is what I'm doing, because 5 years from now, this is what I can still see myself doing. Because, like, 5 years from then, you should still be able to see yourself doing that. You should be able to, like, see yourself making music till you're dead. You know? For a lot of artists, that's kind of what it is. And it is an all or nothing thing. It's like, without the music, without the audio, without everything, it's like a lot of us just cease to exist without it. Really. So, it's all perspective, including what you can do right now, your area, your city, with what opportunities you have. We're in quarantine right now, so there's less of everything for anybody. So people are leaving LA in droves. And that's because they're not from LA. They came to LA for the opportunity that they thought was promised. But if everybody got that promise, would it be an opportunity anymore? Because if everybody's going for it, it would have been gone very, very quickly. So then that means opportunity is still only there for the ones that forge it, even once they're there. It takes the same amount of time for you to break into LA while you're in LA from outside of LA. Why? Because when you're in LA, everybody wants to work. When you're desired from outside of there. It's not even for LA, it's just for everywhere. If you're desired by somebody in the industry and you're wherever the fuck you are, people will go out of their way to get you where they are. If all your work is now in LA, which that's why I moved down from the Bay to LA. It was because I was doing a ton of stuff there. A bunch of my family lives there too, because I'm born and raised around there in like East LA, from like birth up to a certain point. But, it's not where I got my start. And I got my start from a very bumfuck nowhere place. And that is what I love to go back to, too. There's no better place than being detached from all the noise, pretty much, because then I can really focus. And then I'm not worried about, there's no comparison. There's no active dick measuring, which is the thing, regardless of gender. It's just a figure of speech, because it's really just like, what are you doing right now? What do you do for me in the future? And what can you do for me? So that's the kind of thing that, like, if you go and decide, hey, our collective is from wherever, anywhere around the world, then you will be in demand where you're relevant. So, just kind of how it goes. It's one thing after another, though. You can't have one without the other. You can't skip to the finish line and expect it to last long, unfortunately. And if you get to there in some type of fluke way, you deserved it. Just like what Pharrell said. It's like, yeah, I thought I was lucky, and I just stumbled into it. It's like, no. When I think about it, I was working hard at this every single day for a very, very long time. And I didn't think about anything else. And everything I did right when I woke up was, how am I going to get this forward today? So if you're working a full-time job, and I even give this example in the guide or whatever, there's opportunities to work on you. There's spots for you in your relationship with everybody else. Because when you live your best life, everybody else does too with you. Right? So nobody's going to be willing, I guess, to push against that if you're very genuine about it. And if you're in a healthy relationship, only be support. That'd be like, yeah, I need you to do this because I want you to be happy. You know, that should be the only goal for, I guess, you and your partner, or for you with the family, or just living for yourself. You know, you could be working 9 to 5, doing whatever the fuck you're doing, but then you want to do this. So then you put your main effort into this. Whereas you can put 60%, which is technically 100% into your job, you know, and then put 100 or 75 into your music. The minute you step into your own door, it's like, all right, time to start working again, you know, and it's not it's not a chore, and it shouldn't be. It should always be like, yep, I get to produce now. I get to sit down and chill. And you want that mindset. Once you get that mindset, it becomes fuel. It becomes air to breathe. Pretty much anytime you feel like you're losing focus, once you remind yourself of where you want to be, you'll have a little bit more acceptance for where you are right now. Because no one's exactly where they want to be. And even when you do get there, there's going to be new goals. There's going to be new places for you to want to be. Or else, you know, you're done. Are you done? Are you retiring once you get there? You know, so that's the thing. You always set the goal and you move past it. You move up from it. You know, so if you're forging your own goals and you're forging your own step up, then you're always your own boss and you're always giving yourself promotions. You're setting a bar for yourself and then you're exceeding it. And then if you don't, you know, you give yourself, you know, compassion to not be super hard on yourself, but then also you're like, okay, all right, well, what can I do better? You know, you be honest with yourself. You take criticism, you know, even it's hard for some people. But personally, criticism is the best thing you can get sometimes. Sometimes it's exactly what you need to get to see that everything you're doing is right, and some people are just fucking idiots. And then other times, it's like, okay, well, what can I do differently here? It just really offended a ton of people, you know? But if you have one bad review out of 60 great ones, there's something projected there from that one bad review. So everything with a grain of salt, and you stay on your own momentum. Like nobody else gives a shit about what you're doing, really. So you just got to keep on your own path. And you shouldn't really give a shit about what they're doing. Because the minute you give a shit about what they're doing, now you're worried about what they're eating. You're worried about their pie, and if that pie is going to take a piece of your pie. And that creates competitive nature between friends. You know? Yeah, projecting is like FM with opinions. Like, bro, don't modulate with your fucking operator. It's like, but that's like with your bad vibe operator, your doubt copter. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of the thing. You know, you don't want to become competitive with your friends. You don't want to feel competitive with your friends, and you also want to be supporting your homies. Um, and then also be compassionate towards people's mental illnesses. Everybody has their own weaknesses with things, and they're working through their shit. You know, so if somebody has some mental illness problems, you know, you're considerate of that. Kind of work around it. If they're not working through it and they abuse people around them, then you move away from that. And I'm only saying that because that's a very common thing in this industry. And just not even the industry, just dealing with people at this level, even in the underground. It's going to be a thing you have to deal with. So my word of advice with that is give them compassion, I guess, and don't like isolate them. But then also, you know, if they cross a boundary, you got to be very, very clear with that. Once they do, they got to know that it's not okay in that space. Because the minute you start enabling people with a mental illness that don't know how to regulate themselves per se, they need that's a cry for help. They want you to call them out. Inherently, subconsciously. They're saying, "Bro, I can't. My bad." And you just got to be like, "Hey, dude, don't do that." And you're like, "Ah, my bad, dude." And if they don't grow from that, then it's time to move on. You know, and for industry bad things like that, it's sorry, dude, I omitted you from credits. sorry, dude, I got you booked, but then I forgot to tell you that you're not booked anymore. Sorry, dude. It's just like bad communication stuff, and it becomes, you know, either you're taking advantage of your friends now, or you're, just doing things because you're not openly communicating, whatever. This is not stuff that I've done. Stuff I've seen and stuff I'm not okay with from other people. So it's just, it's something that I feel like everybody should be very aware of. And so you have to be very affirmative with your boundaries, and then say, "Hey, dude, so you said this, so where is it?" And then if they don't have a good explanation why, you get mad at them. You shouldn't be like, "Oh, dude, it's all good, whatever." It's like, bro, come on. Like, you have to call them out on their shit. Don't put on the nice face when somebody offends you because they offended you. And that is lying. That's not transparent. Now you're putting on a face so you don't have to deal with confrontation. A real friendship is based on confrontation, just like a relationship, partnership, whatever. You are going to have to fight at some point. If you don't, then it's not a real relationship, just in general, because people will not always have the same opinion about stuff, or sometimes somebody's like their self-awareness is off, and so you just need to like keep them in check, and that helps them grow as a person too, because if they care about you as a friend, they will change, to an extent, of course. But yeah, so that's a ton of stuff today. We talked about life. I gave you guys like my take on stuff. Um, hey, what's up, Leet? Yeah, comparing yourself to other artists is definitely 2018. In 2020, we compare ourselves to the sound of our own washing machines. Bro, and to Lee about posting your mental health journey. Dude, that's what happens. And I've been put on mute by close friends as well, because it's like they'll even come and talk to me about it in person, but then they'll just be like completely detached from me on social media after that. And that's something that I think is stigma, and I think should change. I don't have any, reservations about exposing something that I'm going through. Say like my transitioning, my whatever. It's all part of my journey, dude. Fucking, you want to come at me for it? Come at me. I don't give a shit. At least I'm me, and you're over there wearing that mask, fucking crying yourself to sleep, bro. So, I'll sleep fine tonight. Thanks. So that's literally the vibe, though. It's like, if you don't give a shit about your friend's mental health and you think it's annoying, then you need help. You need therapy because of not being able to be there for your friends. That's called empathy, and you lack it. Um, Empathy is being able to see that someone's in pain and then offering them a hand, helping them up and saying, "All right, dude, like, I get it." Listening to their shit, not saying, "Bro, just stop doing that. Just stop being depressed." You listen to why they're going through that shit, and you say, "You're right, bro. Like, that's some shit." It's like, what are we gonna do about it? It's like try to become part of their come up. It's like they're not in this alone. Yeah, no, that's super true. A lot of people are very self-absorbed to have any empathy, but it really that's what really separates the fake ones from the true ones, because the fake ones will continue business as usual when they, um, you know, end up having to deal with something real. All of a sudden, you're not the focus of attention because now you're having to deal with life shit, and it was only good vibes with that person. So, some people have their boundaries, and that's their thing. Um, Not healthy boundary to be cutting out your friends for venting, because that's how you isolate people. That's how you make them more depressed. And I'm laughing just because it's ironic, not because it's like actually funny. It's ironic how shitty of a person they are. That's what's funny. It's like, because they're so self-absorbed, they don't see how shitty they are to people. And for the most part, people like that are doing that with so many other people in their life. So I end up seeing it as a plus nowadays. Exactly. So, it's a tried and true thing. It's like I saw a post the other day. Kind of triggered me. I didn't say that much about it, but there was a specific take about ADHD that I really did not agree with, which is ADHD is something that's not debilitating, and we should stop making it out like it is. Because I have ADHD, and it's not debilitating. I don't take meds and blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope, sorry, guy. You don't actually have ADHD, and you're one of the many thousands of ADHD diagnoses that doesn't actually had it. Used Adderall for a bit during high school, and now you don't need it. So, if you have ADHD, then your mind's constantly racing. It never shuts the fuck up. And it's constantly telling you every little thing that you did that day, as well as every little fucking anxious moment in the last year or two. So, good luck tuning that out. Like, if you had a mute button for the mind, I would take that over Adderall any day. Um, but yeah, when I take Adderall, I don't feel wired. I actually feel able to focus, and like my thoughts aren't racing for like literally until it's off. And there's a bunch of ways for me to meditate and move through it, but it's literally me meditating every day, drinking a ton of coffee and all this other shit. So it is debilitating. I have to compensate for that. Um, and that's something I dealt with my entire life. And I've fought my ADHD pretty much the entire time. Like I've taken Adderall for years at a time, then stopped because I'm like, I'm better in it. But it's just like, no, no, I'm gonna figure it out this time, and we're gonna get through it. Anybody that says don't make it out like it's this big thing, so just don't listen to them. It is a thing. It makes as much impact to your life as it does, and no one else can say different, really, because they're not you. They're not living your life. Anybody who has that kind of take, honestly, is very self-centered, anyways, because well, ADHD doesn't go away. ADHD actually causes other illnesses because it's not dealt with. This is something I've learned from dealing with my entire life, seeing all this other stuff I didn't deal with. Give you guys more life experience here. One of the reasons why I haven't taken off as a producer is because of that specific thing. That I let my own ADHD go undiagnosed, post me having like all these big things happen in my life with Ghost Production, all these like big opportunities and shit. I just kind of got so depressed I stopped giving a shit. And so I just went on binges for a couple years. My first couple years of my 20s, I don't really remember. So imagine partying in LA a lot. And, you know, that's not something that is healthy, not something that was good. But I didn't go back on meds after that for a while. And then I didn't make that step with my life for a while. And then I did pick myself back up. And then I went full bore into sound design. And pretty much like first year after I did that, I became a teacher, and then worked on Sunset Overdrive. This Xbox game was like first game I worked on and shit.